Sanderson,
Yes.
Monahan,
Yes.
Carver,
Yes.
Beatty.
Yes. Okay, at this time, the board has set aside time for anyone wishing to address the board. I would like to remind our public that this portion of the meeting, for a maximum of 60 minutes, time is reserved for comments from the public in accordance with Policy 2230, public participation at Board of Education meetings, and petition of the board as follows. This will be the only opportunity to address the board during the regular meeting. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. A screen timer will be provided. Individuals may not defer their time to another speaker. If your comments are about matters involving students or district personnel, please refrain from disclosing names. Please understand that the board will not respond to questions made during public comment, but may direct the superintendent to address these questions in a district communication or at a subsequent board meeting. Please remember the board generally needs time to gather additional information about any questions or concerns prior to responding or taking action. At the conclusion of the meeting, if you have additional questions for the board, please see the board secretary. And I think I have somebody signed up, Karen Zimmerman. Just come up here.
I timed it, it's 2.5 minutes. So, I addressed the board about 5 years ago about TIFs, and so I'm giving you an update. Thank you for the opportunity to address the board. My topic is incremental property taxes and tax abatements. There are 3 TIFs and 2 enterprise zones overlaid by District 7. In aggregate, approximately 70% of total property taxes paid go to District 7. Therefore, District 7 has a 70% vested interest in the administration of these programs. The 2 TIFs administered by Edwardsville are illegitimately diverting approximately $17 million from District 7. I say that because of the contributing factors. They include: 1, the extension of TIF 2. Note that the TIF 2 comprehensive project was completed and the TIF was running a surplus, so there was no legitimate reason for extending the time period to complete the project or to retire outstanding obligations per statute. 2, the awarding of approximately $7 million in grants, which are not included in either TIF's comprehensive plan and budget as required by statute to be legal. For perspective on this amount, there's only one legitimate grant program, that being the commercial facade program, which limits the maximum amount per grant to $25,000. And then the out-of-scope activities and the conversion of funds of approximately $1.5 million. Moving along to the Orchard Town Center TIF, administered by Glenn Carbon, concerns were raised by one district board member as to the legitimacy of designating the area as TIF eligible. Those concerns apparently fell on deaf ears with respect to the other board members in the administration. Next, the Gateway Commerce Center and Discovery Enterprise Zones, administered by the county. These abate taxes on new development. It should be noted that the primary purpose of enterprise zones is to stimulate economic growth and revitalization in economically depressed areas within the state. I'd say it's a hard stretch to think that either Glen Carbon or Edwardsville is economically depressed, yet somehow land area keeps getting added to at least one of these zones. Which brings up the question of District 7's administration's involvement in these programs. Apparently, District 7 has no documentation as to the actual status of these programs, to include when they will end, who the grant recipients are, and that one's pretty interesting. You might want to really look into that one, and when property taxes will no longer be diverted away from District 7. It'd be great if the board took action to rectify this situation and provide full transparency to District 7 taxpayers as to what taxes are being abated from the school, and diverted. 17 million is just Edwardsville's 2 TIFs. What are the other ones? Thank you.
Okay. Was anybody else wanting to speak tonight? That was the only one that signed up. Okay, hearing nothing. And we'll move on to this evening's policy discussion. Dr. Shelton, do you want to start?
Absolutely. So we have
3 sections of policy to review this evening. We're starting to look at Press Plus issue 119, so over the course of this meeting and the next work session, and then obviously the subsequent board meetings that follow. So for those in the audience, we'll be discussing policy at a work session. We'll present for first reading at the following business meeting, and then we'll present for second reading at the next month's business meeting. So Press Plus 119 comes from the state, and they've asked that we have that done by the end of October. So if we can go to those policies, the first group of policies are those that are scheduled for review by Press Plus. So the first one is policy 280. It does have a question with it. So it's the question is part of the language of the policy, and so it reiterates the oath of office that each board member takes. And Jean, we might have slides on this for people to see, I think. Do we have slides on these? No, I didn't. So I thought you did. So nope, sorry, Jean. Hang on a second, we don't have those. Sorry, 280 is the oath of office, but the question at the end is, do you want to add this language? And this is the language. A board member who fails to abide by the oath of office or the code may be subject to action by the board, including but not limited to formal censure and or referral to the regional superintendent for removal from office under board policy 260, board member removal from office. That is up to the board to decide, do you want to include that language in the policy?
And that's written in some of the information that we have?
It's written in policy 260, so 260 on board member removal from office has that language in it. This would just be a reference back to that.
So all we're doing is just
Including language from 260,
Cross-referencing.
cross-referencing, yeah.
And
It is not required by Press Plus.
And 260 is not under review, it's just the 280 is under review?
Correct.
So we're not questioning the language, just if we wanted to...
And it's not a legal update, it is their footnote there is updated for continuous improvement. So this is part of the 5-year review that Press Plus does and something that they're putting in front of districts to decide. I think this is the first one we've had an actual question on that we've reviewed so far.
Since I've been here, I don't remember.
Yeah, we've had a couple, but they don't happen very often, but this is one. Any thoughts?
Personally, I don't know that it makes much difference. If the wording is there in a policy, and when you reference that policy, you go back to that. But, if somebody has a preference for it being in there, I don't think that hurts either.
And the policy 260 is listed in the cross-reference policies,
Yeah,
so it's referenced in
There.
some way, shape, or form, just not the language from that.
And so this isn't language that would be read by the person giving the oath? It would just, okay,
Correct.
just be in the written policy?
Correct.
Okay.
That's a good question.
It is a good question.
Yeah, it is.
I mean,
Any other discussion?
if it's just a reference, I don't.
It's already in the cross-reference?
It's in the cross-reference.
Yeah.
Now, it was added to the cross-reference as part of this recommendation,
Okay.
so can you leave the cross-reference in there? Maybe? And if you look at the notes from Press Plus, to encourage appropriate conduct, boards may wish to have their policy express potential consequences for violating their oath of office. So that would be the sentence you add.
But that's, it's already things that were already
Correct.
available.
Correct.
They're just trying to foot stomp it.
Correct.
To make sure.
That's a
it's
good way to
just
put it. Let's not.
They're underlining,
Mhm.
basically.
Yeah.
I'm fine with it being in there.
I'm not hearing a strong yes.
I don't have a.
Okay.
Yes.
You want it in there?
You want
I'm
it in
all
there,
for
Matt?
accountability, so,
Yeah.
if it's holding us accountable to the oath that we serve, then absolutely, each one of us should abide by that oath, so
Yeah.
I'm not scared of a little sentence in there that says this is what happens when you don't follow the rules. So I'm a strong yes.
I support, to be honest, like I said, I don't care. So I support, if you want it in there, to me, my opinion is you should. If somebody
Yeah.
feels strongly about it, we should.
Yeah, I'm fine with
Yeah.
it.
Okay. The next one, policy 7140, is search and seizure. It has some language changes, similar to what we've seen before in other policies. They've changed certificated to licensed. They've referenced explicitly, rather than personal effects left there, they've referenced on-school property, and have taken out a portion of a sentence related to student search on parked vehicles, but it really just is more of a reference sentence. It doesn't change the content. And these are all legal updates that came from court cases that are all been referenced at the end. No question to review there.
I do have a question about the certified versus licensed. Is that, I mean, is there a scenario that matters? That, I'm not saying it doesn't, I mean, is there an example?
The only thing that I can come up with is if you had a licensed clinical social worker instead that did not have a certificate from the state, but I don't know of a licensed employee. Brian, do you know off the top of your head? Anybody that has a license has a certificate from a professional certificate from the state, so.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay.
All right, policy 880 on gifts to the district under community relations. The change in this is number 5. Adds the language be viewpoint neutral, and the add is when the gift involves the incorporation of any messages. And that is in reference to 5-year review and based on quality assurance that they want to add.
And what are messages? Is that advertising? I don't,
So essentially,
Okay.
yeah, you can't have an opinion on the message if you accept a gift in lieu of a message.
gotcha.
Yeah, so that's viewpoint neutral is what the board has to be. Questions on that one?
And this is something, is this one mandatory?
We would not, I mean, you could leave that out because there's no legal reference in there. It's simply being recommended from press on the 5-year review.
Okay.
But the language, I believe the language there before would have been be viewpoint neutral. So they've just added the language of when the gift
They
involves the
added,
incorporation
yeah.
of any messages.
Mhm.
So, and I guess that sort of is in alignment though with the fact that, that gifts be given, like in number 2, be given without a stated purpose or for a purpose deemed by the party with authority. Basically, I guess that means that they can't earmark it for something specific.
Right.
What would be an example of something that, like, I guess I'm struggling with the value of adding that provision.
I think that's a fair statement. Because if you're viewpoint neutral in the first place, it wouldn't be just
Yeah.
in relation to the message, it would be in
Right.
relation to anything.
Yeah,
And again, in my opinion, their rationale doesn't really explain the why behind that for me.
yeah,
Update in response to press 5-year review, have a quality assurance goal to ensure that the review of each piece of press policy reference occurs every 5 years. That's their why behind it, which doesn't.
I would think leaving it at be viewpoint neutral would be more encompassing.
Certainly a
Or
broader
it's a broader-
interpretation.
yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah, because this does narrow it.
Mhm.
Yeah,
That's a good point.
So, back to the process though, I mean, we don't have to take this recommendation.
You would not have to take this recommendation.
Okay. I mean, based on that alone, I think.
yeah, I would not
Yeah.
prefer to adopt that language.
Okay.
Does anybody else have an opinion on that?
My only, I agree. I'm trying to figure out why that is important. And the only way that I can figure that out is like, if the NRA were to make a donation to our trap team, and the NRA is, pro Second Amendment, would that send a message that says the district is also? So is that why that language is in there? I mean, there's no context to why.
There is no context, you are correct.
So I'm fine with leaving it out because the lack of context in there. If no one understands it, it makes no sense to put it in there.
Well, and your example, I think, is more of an implied message.
Yeah.
This alludes to an explicit message, but I don't know that that's actually what would be the case, to your point.
Right.
I mean, I don't think there's any way in which the NRA's gift could be viewpoint neutral, period.
You're right. Yeah, you're right.
So
But I think it's a good example
the-
in that
That's
there
only-
could be,
It does.
there could be things like that where,
The gift doesn't have to be viewpoint neutral. The board has to be viewpoint neutral.
Board.
yeah, okay, yeah,
Has
yeah.
to be view- Okay. Oh,
I can also contact our attorney and see if he has any context for this, just to
That's
see.
what I was gonna
That might
say.
be
If
helpful.
we could get some
I know.
examples of why they're
Sure.
suggesting this over and above what they had put at the bottom.
and the whole
in-
impact
In their
of it.
comments.
Yep. Happy to. All right, the next one is policy 6280. So this is coming from an administrative recommendation. This is one that Tara Fox, our Director of Curriculum, has been working on for quite some time. And there is an AP that she's working on as well that talks about the implementation of this policy related to grading and promotion. And specifically, the AP goes into the retention part of the policy. So it's going to provide processes for interventions, timelines related to retention. And that'll come to the board at some point following the passing of the policy. So you can see that there's some, and this has been through legal reference. Anything that we review that doesn't come from Press Plus, we send through legal as well. So you can see the changes in language there as it relates to a decision to promote a student to the next grade level and how that language changes to decisions regarding promotion or retention of a student shall be based on progress towards mastery of grade level standards, attendance, performance on assessments, and other academic indicators. The language stays in, the superintendent or the student shall not be promoted based on any age or social reason not related to academic performance. And then we took out the sentence that says administration shall determine remedial assistance for a student and says shall provide interventions to students who are not making satisfactory progress towards attaining the academic standards for their grade level as defined in school code. So that one got modified a little bit by our legal counsel just to reference Illinois school code because that is specific. And then at the very end, any grade change must be approved by administrator with appropriate documentation. So again, the change in this policy is to reflect procedure changes that are happening on the retention side. And it is not to increase the number of retentions, it's actually to provide more support at the beginning. So where we get to a point that hopefully retention doesn't happen, but then there's also supports afterwards where we know that retention, doing a grade level again research shows that doesn't really have a positive impact on kids. And so the AP will go into what happens when you do retain a student and how things are different.
So it references the intervention services to students, but there's no, to me, timelines, or there's things that are missing, but maybe
That's in the administrative procedure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
makes sense.
That this is, in my opinion, pretty broad.
It is. And in a lot of ways, a lot of those procedures are already in place because we already have student support teams that review student data. We have teams that monitor interventions. They have data team chats. So we're trying to align what this policy is about and then what we are doing in practice. Questions on that one? All right. And then the last one came at a request of a board member, policy 460, purchases of contracts.
And the board member who requested it, not online, but I think you've talked with Scott, right? Did you want to sort of talk about what he had wanted to do with this?
Yeah, I don't think Scott was able to join. He's on vacation, so he asked if I would represent what he would like to propose. And so currently in number 1, supplies, materials, or work involving an expenditure in excess of $35,000 must comply with the state law bidding procedure. What Scott would like to propose is placing that cap at $10,000 and creating like a 3-tiered And then anything that would be $10,001 would be vetted to the board chair and or the vice chair. And then anything over 15,000 would require full board approval.
So going down from 35,000 to either 10 and or, you said 3-tiered, but you only said 2 numbers. So was there a third one or did I miss something?
Sure, yeah, 10,000, Dr. Shelton would have,
Oh, okay, the first tier would be 0 to 10,000.
Yeah.
Okay, then 10,001 to 15. Okay.
This is an interesting policy just because it deals more with the at least my understanding, more about how the district goes about entering contracts and programs and what process we delineate with that process. So if it's over 35, then we have to go through a bid process that's outlined by the state. Under that, we don't have to follow like a standard bid process. That's basically what the $35,000 threshold is for. What causes us to go to that point, if I understand the policy correctly, is that if we are going to be going over budget, we have an annual budget with a line, let's say, pick your number, $1 million, and we find that we're going to go over that amount through some purchase or whatever, then that's when you start following the litany of issues here with regard to whether it has to come to the board for approval or not. And if that value is over $35,000, then it has the added caveat of needing to have gone through a bid process. So, in theory, as I read this, if our budget is $1 million for that line and what they plan on purchasing is under that $1 million, then there's really no, even if you say it at 10,000, there would be no need for that to come to the board because it's under budget. That's how I interpret the policy.
I thought the policy said any purchases that would go over budget would require board approval.
Over budget,
Correct.
yes.
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 Correct.
So
Yes.
my language,
But the delineation of the 35,000 is if it's going over budget plus the value of what's being requested is over 35,000, it has to go through a bid process.
see, I read it as he can go up to 35,000, anything after 35,000 requires board approval, but any dollar amount over our annual budget would require board approval.
If he's at nine, let's say, like $2 away from $1 million, and he wants to buy something that's $100, he would have to come to the board for approval for that.
Correct.
But
So-
if that $2 that he goes over, he needed $35,000 worth of product, that would require a bid process. What we've gotten into this summer is because we didn't have a budget
for the track,
for the track.
right?
And we didn't have a budget in general, because the fiscal year ended June 30th. And so, that's part of the discussion tonight, is having a budget, working towards that process. So you're kind of in that sweet spot of, well, we still have operations, we still have things we need to buy, but we don't necessarily have a budget that's fully formed. And I think we've been sort of operating on just kind of the amount that we spent last year, kind of using that as sort of our guide. I think that's basically kind of what we've talked about. So,
Okay, so when there's not a budget for said project, then is Dr. Shelton authorized the superintendent to approve change orders?
that's a different question, and I think the answer is probably not, because there is not a budget.
Can I ask, I'm being new to this and coming in with sort of in the middle, not the back end, but in the middle, why wasn't a budget already formulated for this particular project, or track and field?
Well, that's a good question, and you can probably answer that better than me. I know when we were voting, when it was being presented, it was just the package of, I can't remember, like 2.5,
Yeah.
whatever it was.
In 3 different
And-
phases.
And there were no contingencies listed, there were no anything.
Correct.
If that was on a line in a budget, let's say that 2.5 million, but the line was for 4 million, and that contract encompassed a portion of that 4 million, then there would have been that authority for him to be able to do additional things. But obviously, because we don't have a budget, we don't have that.
It would have been the same if we'd had put that project out to bid, with it, or any project goes out to bid, and all of a sudden, the bid threshold goes over, we're gonna have to come back to the board and revisit the price that was approved for that project.
There's some concerns.
So when we say the word budget,
Yes.
That's what I was gonna say.
we're getting two different means. We have an annual operational
Yeah.
budget for the
Right.
district, and then we have our contract budget, right? So let's just take, we're fixing X out there, and X has a certain dollar amount associated to our contract. Are we talking about if that contract final amount, if it goes over that final amount, or are we talking about our district budget here?
That's a great question.
That's what I was thinking too.
When
I've got
I
your
say
budget,
budget, I'm talking about the district budget,
Okay.
The annual budget.
the annual budget, carte blanche. What you're talking about is the contract value.
Correct.
The contract value is 2.5 with no contingencies in there. Or in the case, like a great example would be Lincoln, because Lincoln has built-in contingencies with we're not going to spend over a certain amount. So therefore, there is that leeway for, moving things, making things work to be able to fit in that amount. That's the contract value. That's the no more than a certain amount. When the track was voted on, it was that value. There was no additional amount. There was no contingency amount. There was nothing added to it. So that's part of what's led to, kind of that perfect storm of going through that process and trying to understand, how do we address the work changes without a budget and make sure we go through that process.
Right. I think we solved that one. Obviously, we're trying to get a budget here. But I think the spirit of this, the way that it was explained to me, or the way that I understood it, was to limit the amount of expenses that could be spent without board approval. So if we're spending, like so far on the track, 15 plus 18,000, is that 35,000 total per project? Or is that 35,000, up to 35,000 for each change order? Because you could have 17 different change orders at 20 grand a piece, and you're already way over budget.
Right.
But without board approval. So I think the board is trying to assume control of some of the approvals.
So can I bring Dave up?
Sure.
Because I think Dave's the one that deals with this way more than anybody else. So Dave, he didn't know I was going to do this. So Dave, would you come up? Dave said no. Just because I think there are lots of examples outside of the track that Dave can speak to, because he does this all the time, that I think might give more context. As some examples, as it relates to really maintenance and operations, is probably the place where it's the most prevalent.
Yeah, we don't want to limit the operations of the
Correct.
district. If we need
Correct.
$11,000 worth of paper towels, we don't want to say, no, you
Right.
can't put paper
And
towels.
generally,
And wait till we have to approve it.
to Bob's
On
point,
that.
generally, when you approve a budget, you're approving the district to spend up to that amount to operate the district. And so the bidding threshold actually changed 2 years ago, 3 years ago? It's been since I've been superintendent. From 25 to 35.
When I first joined
Yeah.
the board, it went from 30 to 25. to
Yeah,
30.
and that was a recommendation from Press Plus and from ISB, just based on the cost of things and escalation of costs. So Dave, talk about just specifically bidding process and when we have to bid and when we don't.
So as Matt described and Bob's described, so the 35 is a threshold that we utilize for bidding projects. So there's I have the same conversation with, is this an issue with the annual budget, or is it an issue with a project that was presented to the board and was bid, and the bid was 2.5 million, and now it's gonna cost 2.7. So I view that separate than like the annual budget. So if the board approved a project, I'll say any project, and that project was set at a certain amount when the bid was approved by the school board. If it goes over that amount, then I think anything that's over that amount needs to come back to the school board and say, this is going over, whether it's, to me, whether it's part of the budget or not.
Right.
Because on some of those line items, like this year, like operation and maintenance, for example, the capital project line item is gonna be like 3.3 million, but it's part of this track, the committed fund balance from last year, the budget for this year. Part of it is the insurance proceeds and the payments that we're making for the roof project still. So that's in there because there's an offset on the revenue. Then there's the like parking lot project that carried over from last year. So there's these, like the number looks like it's really big. And if you use that, to me, if you use that as a threshold, you could put stuff in there, right, that related to that project, and it's put in because the budget's there. But then 6 months from now, that $4 million line item will become an issue, or could become an issue, because of the contract that was approved, that the change orders or the change or increases didn't come back and get approved. So on that instance, for me, I would most likely take that, and I would probably request to adjust the budget, because there are other things in the budget already that are set aside. And if that contract was approved and went over, then I think it comes back to the board, and then I would adjust the budget. That's how I would like to operate it. Because there are other things that are in that budget line item that are projected for that year. And if you just use the annual budget number, and then you push 60,000 through, and then you get to April, and now you're at 1 million or 2 million, and it's like, well, now the project that was actually in there was essentially going to cause the line to go over. Right. Well, that's not really what the intent was, right?
Right.
So that's how I would view it. The threshold numbers, just overall lowering them. The only issue or caveat is as you were just beginning to describe it, is does it hinder the operation? So this is mainly a maintenance issue. So obviously if you have some maintenance issue that needs to be addressed, I don't know when that maintenance issue comes up whether that's going to cost me $10,000 or not. Because you're going to call somebody out, there's a boiler that's shot, HVAC problem, a freezer problem. They come out, they start working on it. All of a sudden it turns into this is wrong, and this is wrong, and this is wrong, and now that's $25,000 or $30,000, whatever.
And you have to wait for board approval.
Wait to fix it.
So we'd
and
have
then-
to call an emergency board meeting because the boiler has to be fixed.
Yeah, it's mainly maintenance stuff, because the other stuff, you have enough time to maneuver through. But when it's an emergency maintenance repair, those are the biggest issues that you don't know, because like when you start a maintenance repair, you call out GRP or Icon or whoever, and they start going through it, and you may think it's only going to be a couple $1,000s, and then it's like this part's wrong, this part's wrong, this part's wrong, and now it's going to take me 3 days to fix it. And now all of a sudden 2 or 3 weeks later, the project's getting done and you're getting an invoice for $15,000, $16,000, and you're like, oh, well, shoot.
Yeah.
Didn't have board approval,
Right.
but didn't know that when it started it was going to run 16,000.
I mean,
Now, does that mean that the board can't be informed? Yeah, I mean, if there's something like, hey, the boiler at Woodland's down, can there be a communication that says, hey, boiler at Woodland's down, don't know what it's going to cost yet, but heads up, boiler's down.
Right.
Major repairs,
right.
semi-major.
And that's kind of how we have functioned before, whereas we're in the middle of a project, something comes up that's, it's either halt the project or to go to the board vote or inform the board that this is the direction we need to go. And as long as it's been an amount that's reasonable, I've used the 35,000 as reasonable, then because the other option is halt the project and wait for a board meeting. And so whether it's a boiler or a track, the project's going to get halted until a decision's made. And so sometimes the decision has to be made.
Okay, so I am concerned that we didn't have a budget. There wasn't an approved CapEx amount for the project for the track and field.
Well,
That's-
there
that's-
was a budget to me because it was presented to the school board and voted on. That's where I'm saying,
And this is the word that they were getting confused
Yes.
with when we
Yes.
say
Or
budget.
project.
There's, the
Project
contract
budget.
value
Project
had
Right.
been approved,
correct.
There
so.
wasn't
So
a
I-
contingency.
I view two different issues.
Right.
I feel like once there's a project, as Bob said, project budget that is presented to the school board and adopted and said, project X is gonna be 2.3 million, we bid it, here's it is, got contingency, whatever, here it is. Board approves it. 3 weeks later, well, it's gonna be 2.5 now.
Yeah.
That needs to come back
Right,
Right.
to the school board.
right.
And that's where, when we bring it back to the school board, I know we've talked about budgets and amended budgets and all that, but those are kind of the things like, in a perfect world for me, when those things are done, that's set, then that would trigger, in essence, could trigger a budget adjustment right away, because if there are other items, especially in a capital line item, where you set aside, we're gonna do this project, this project, this project, this project. Once you go over on one of those, you almost have to, you have to make the assumption at that time that this budget might need to be adjusted because we got these 3 other projects that we were expecting to do this year, or we're not going to adjust the budget and project X gets kicked to next year or something,
Right.
you know, depending on what that cost is.
I think, Sarah, you're concerned because we don't have our district budget, so we don't even know what projects we're budgeting for in the future because we haven't passed the
Right,
annual
and-
budget, yet we want to spend money on a project that has
Exactly.
already had a budget,
That's right.
that was already budgeted.
Well,
And so somewhere down the road, before we even plan for it,
Well, the
something's
prob-
already coming off.
Well, that's true. The problem with that, I mean, the problem with how do I say this? The problem with the timing of the budget, you know, there are line items set aside, but for them, you know, on when you're talking about a capital project, that's something different because those things are usually decided in advance. Like we already know pretty much this year it was
Right.
the track, the turf on the inside, because we committed that. We still have parking lots rolling over. We've got a few other things that, you know, we're planning for next summer that are in there. But from an operational standpoint, the budget itself, I can develop a budget in April, but it's not going to mean anything to you because
Yeah,
it's just,
Made up.
it's just made up. Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
and-
But, you know, I also am working within the framework of like, I'm looking at it day to day and I'm looking at it and saying, I'm not in my job going to say to the superintendent, oh, that's fine, when if I know there's things that are in that budget for next year and Patrick says, well, can we do this and it's 250,000, I'm going to probably say it's not in there right now, so the answer to me is no, unless we move something else around, right? Before the budget gets adopted. So when you can adopt, I mean, you can set a parameter of a budget, but mainly this is going to be like in the capital projects area for the most part, because the other expenses that are in the budget for the most part are recurring items. It's not, I'll use the term, a lot of these things are, I refer to as discretionary because you don't have to do it. Whereas buying a software license for a curriculum, you have to do. You know, whether the curriculum software goes up 25% or not, you're going to have to probably do that. So if that budget line item goes over, then you get into that, like, okay, you set that aside and it ends up, it can go down recurring costs that are tied to specific expenses that the district has to have to operate versus, well, we want to do a track project, but, you know, it's going to cost 2.5 million and I've only got 1.4 million sitting in a budget.
Right.
well, we don't have to do that.
We're kind of bleeding into some of the discussion topics that are coming with this.
Right.
But I want to kind of bring it back a little bit. For the track, since that's in everybody's mind right now, we did a couple of things. Number one, obviously, we voted on a total dollar. We also voted on that be paid for over 3 budget periods.
Correct.
So from a revenue perspective, it
Correct.
doesn't, it's not all being done in 1 year.
Correct.
So that's one thing. And so from my standpoint, regardless, if we did not vote to include a contingency on top of it, then any change that is over the 2.5 or whatever that value is, it should come back to the board for approval, categorically. For this particular policy, though, I think what the more important thing for me is what's not stated in it. And on line 1, which has got the $35,000 line, where it says unless specifically exempted. I think the exempted list is where a lot of the story is for some purchases. Like, for instance, if it's used equipment, it's exempted from the bid process. That would be like your shuttles, you know, because all the shuttles were purchased used, so you didn't have to go through a bid process. And so that type of thing would have been, you know, sort of maybe addressed more with a bid process if they had not been used. Those types of things. I mean, and it's a long list of exemptions, you know, that the state
Tech
has.
services.
So,
Copiers and
yeah. So, I mean,
professional services.
I personally, I mean, if everybody's wanting to lower the threshold, I mean, I'm open to the discussion to it. I could see going back to the 25,000. I don't know that 10,000, particularly since we're talking about what triggers a bid process.
I think we could entertain the possibility of changing the language to reflect project versus O&M. Because if it is a boiler, is it an HVAC issue, it is something of a site location that's already been established and grandfathered in, then yes, by all means, it needs to be replaced and maintenance, then go for it. But then if it's $35,000 over, then of course, you know, Dr. Shelton would seek the board's approval. That, to the point of projects, though, the community was led to believe that we would have a track and field at 2.3. And then we didn't take into account that we have to have the soil removed. That's gonna cost us $18,867. Cha-ching! Oh wait, we forgot about something else, that's gonna be another 15. All these hidden things that come up because the contract itself originally wasn't reviewed in detail, that should have been encompassed. All these things start adding up. And then now we're at 2.5, 2.7. So I think we could change the language to reflect that separation of O&M versus project, those contracts and what they entail. Last Monday, the board voted down the, 2 or 3 different things that popped up. Conduit, 4-foot sidewalk, you know, they're going to continue to keep adding up. And I think individuals want to see those expenses just not adding up in that capacity. But no, I'm in total agreement as far as the O&M. Those things they're gonna creep up, things aren't gonna last forever, and we're gonna have to jump on it to get it fixed. But as far as contractually, you know, with these projects that we're vetting out and buttoning up priorities, phase 1, 2, and 3 so far, we need to be mindful of what the amount is.
So I'm hoping to get just a little clarity on this, because the way I read this and interpret this is that the thing that we're looking, this threshold we're talking about, really only relates to when we have to get this specific bid process.
Right,
Correct?
per the statute.
So we don't want necessarily, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but if we had like a $10,000 threshold, my concern would be we're inhibiting the operations because we've got to like go through this whole bid process for everything that's $10,000 or more. Or we end up it ends up becoming more costly because we have to go through this bid process rather than just making the purchase. And so, you know, I think if 25,000 is a threshold that we've seen in the past that has worked, I mean, I guess I would like a little bit more information on what kinds of, you know, what kinds of contracts we're talking about in that range of $10,000 to $35,000. You know, what's going to fall into that bucket? I think that would be helpful to see. And then also the specifically exempted list. Sorry, Dave.
Oh, it's in the school.
Okay,
There's a
okay,
ton.
so I'll
Yeah.
look at that then a little
I mean,
more
it's
closely.
professional services,
Yeah.
tech copiers, it's all this like,
Yeah,
you know, direct service stuff that you go, you know, architects, engineers. I mean, it's,
Yeah.
you know, most of these are gonna be, for the most part, are gonna be operation and maintenance and our construction bids.
That's what I was wondering, what projects would there be that were not under O&M, or I guess some health, life safety? What
Mhm.
most capital expenditures really are under O&M, correct?
Yes.
So we did.
I mean, like, we bid, like, when we needed like something for food service, like a freezer or something, I mean, we bid that, you know.
Yeah, I think, I mean, the overarching theme of kind of what we're kind of talking about, though, is the track process and how that was
Project-related.
handled, which I think what I'm hearing is we're all in agreement that pretty much every dollar over what was contracted should have come to the board for approval. So,
I don't think anybody's arguing over the process, it's set by state law, but, you know, with the 35,000, I mean, the true root of it, the nuts and bolts is just to limit the spending outside the contractual limits, that's
Yeah.
it. So if this is the wrong section for it, we need to find the right section for it and write what the board wants to allow a superintendent or designee to purchase beyond his whatever means. He has to have a set guideline to follow, otherwise we're not doing him any
with
favor.
regard to projects or O&M?
Regard to project budgets. So if this happens during the project and you uncover something that happens there and it needs to be done, he should have a specific dollar amount that he has to follow within. That's fair, that's the way that business should run. But at the same token, as the board members, we need to be responsible spenders responsible of the taxpayers' dollars to make sure that we're not chipping away at 15,000 here, 18,000 here, 17,000 here, and this is going beyond the scope of what it was meant to be. So,
Matt, what you're describing is what our construction managers are doing every day. They are taking dollars and they're allocating what's so important that I need to take care of it now without even talking to anybody, and what do I need to go back to the owner and say and deal with. And I think when we talk about the spoils haul off, and we could have piled 2,000 cubic yards of dirt somewhere and just said, hey, we'll wait for the board approval. That would have been the option. And soil stabilization, we could have not done it, but that would have affected the integrity of the project or halted the project. And so that's where I think I probably need guidance, because I would have been happy to halt the project, but then we're 3 weeks behind schedule when we're already a little bit behind schedule. And so that also then would have come back as we should have taken action faster. So I think that's where, it's not like we're going out there and frivolously saying, yeah, let's just go ahead and throw some stabilization there just in case, right? And so I think that's where, and we're going to bring this back up at the next August board meeting, because we still need to talk about some of the things going on at the track. And I'm going to have the civil engineer there, because I think it's important you hear from him, because I'm not the person running the project. I'm bringing you the recommendation from the people behind the scenes. But I do think having that understanding that the more limitations you put on, it doesn't matter what the project is, track, whatever it is, the more we slow the process down.
And you also run the risk of losing your contractor, because if they have a timeline and they have to be done by this day, they have another project.
Correct.
Or
So
you
they-
also run the risk of them inflating the costs up front. That's what I would be worried
Yeah,
about.
I agree.
And then all of a
Good point.
sudden, they've got, some costs that they figure are gonna get built in because they're gonna have to spend some money later on whatever that might be. And so you're paying more for the project up front if you are approving a bigger number possibly up front, because they've got some contingencies over and above what they normally would plan.
And I don't disagree with that, but I also would say that soil removal is just common sense. That should have been in all
Yeah.
3 of the bids. Not a sudden surprise that we didn't factor in $18,867 to remove soil. So,
Concrete and everything else. But
just want to be mindful of what these expenditures are and how they're adding up very quickly. I don't want to halt progress,
Sure.
but we have to be mindful of, are these dollars adding up?
and we need to have a cap. This says $35,000. But is that per change order or per budget?
It is,
Because right now, with 2 change orders that we have on the track already that were already paid, it was $33,000.
well, I think what we were discussing is that since we're talking about an actual contracted amount, any value over what is contracted has to come for approval.
Can that contract be adjusted? For example, can you decide to take away fencing and
Sure we could.
still be within budget?
That's something we'll talk about on August
It would-
25th. Yeah, that's,
But it would, in theory, still require a board vote because it'd be a change in scope of
Correct.
what the previous board had already voted on.
correct.
Okay.
I mean, at least that's my understanding. I mean, because if the board approved a contract that encompassed various requirements and then we come in later and change those requirements, that would have to be voted on.
Correct.
So,
And then Dave, you have a specific dollar amount for each year for the next 3 years for this project. So this year is already set in stone. But if we decide to go and approve all these things regarding the track
Right,
and whatever future expenses that pop up,
right.
does that get spread out over 3 years or is it only taken off this year?
So the track and the turf was last year and this year. So it would be within this year's budget because the committed fund balance from last year was moving that amount over to this year and then adding the 700,000 or 800,000 that we were committing towards this year on top of it. Then the next fiscal year is the softball, so anything related to some change that happens in the softball field would be the next fiscal year, would be fiscal year 26, 27.
Okay.
Do we have a
So-
contingency for the softball
No.
No,
project?
so that's all part of the same project.
Yikes.
So that's where,
Which means there's no soil stabilization
Whether
on there.
it could be other things they find,
conduit or,
yeah.
so that has to come back, to me, it has to come back from the
no,
school
no
board.
takeaway either, I would imagine.
So, but that's in 27.
Okay. So, more discussion to follow.
Discussion followed.
Okay.
So are we going to, just process-wise, how is this, who's going to make a final recommendation for the board to vote on?
So what I heard, to summarize, is the board would like more information on the meat of the policy, the exceptions, some of the way that it operates, to bring back for a future discussion. So that means I would not take this forward for a first reading change, because right now there's nothing to change,
Right.
but we would bring it back for another discussion.
Okay.
Okay.
That's my understanding.
Thank you, Jill, for putting a bow on that.
Yep.
thank you, Dave.
Okay.
And don't go anywhere.
And that's
You know.
it for policy section. Now we're entering our facilities and finance portion of the meeting. Okay, 5.1. This time I would like to welcome Dave Courtney, CFO, COO, to join us. See, I got a really awesome script here. To join the board for the upcoming facilities and finance discussion.
You have a script.
Thanks for joining us,
You have a
Dave.
script, thank you.
Yeah.
First thing I wanted to talk was about and I think this is included in the information that was presented, is a preliminary update on where we are ending fiscal year June 30, 2025. So we have done all of our, final, I guess, entries and final work. Our auditors have been here for a week. This is entering their second week. So, but we have presented all this information to them, and I think I don't expect there to be any changes from this, but They are still here in another week, but I wanted to at least go through that process of where we're at tonight. So if you look at what I tried to do is it's really a summary here, and I've tried to highlight, for example, with the education fund. You'll see first line, which references unreserved fiscal year 24 fund balance. So that's essentially where we started the year at 14.8 million. Then you have your expenditures and revenues for the year, net change in fund balance, which is negative 1.7, and we're ending June 30, 2025 with just over 13 million. Our amended budget was at 12.2. Remembering part of that, so I have some notes off to the side to kind of reference. So while the fund balance will show that on the audit report, what you see off to the side is what I refer to as assigned fund balances and then the committed fund balance. So the differentiation is the committed fund balance, which we reference in the O&M fund, is one that I have the board approve because at the end of the fiscal year, we had made no payments on that project. So I want that fund balance committed because it was not even, there was no payment made from the prior fiscal year and needed to make sure that it was budgeted appropriately in the fiscal year that we're in right now. When you see an assigned fund balance number, what that's telling me, or is telling the board, should tell the board is that while that fund balance number or that assigned number has not been taken from the fund balance at the end of the year, there have been payments and commitments made already. It's just not been fully paid yet. So the encumbrance from the prior year is rolling into the next year. So the 500,000 you see referenced in the ed fund relates to textbooks for math. So partial pay in prior year finished in this current fiscal year. So the 13 million, essentially 500,000 has been assigned or is already committed. So when the budget is being developed for this year, there's a $500,000 line item already in like textbooks for the math curriculum purchase for this school year. So we ended at just short of 13.1, a little better than what I expected. Mainly two things: continued receipts and interest income, and one of the other things is at the end of June we received a Medicaid cost settlement from fiscal year 23 that added about I think it was $150,000 or $200,000 that I didn't expect. Knew that there was a cost settlement out there, but didn't know what it was going to be and when it would be paid, but it was paid before the end of June. So that kind of led to the fund balance being a little higher than expected. On the O&M fund, you see we started the year at 8.6. We ended this year at 9.8. First biggest reason, $1 million committed fund balance assigned to the track project that was budgeted for this year, but no payments had been made before the end of the fiscal year, hence moving it into the current fiscal year that we're in right now. And then a $370,000 line item for assigned fund balance, which is the parking lot improvements, which had a partial payment before the end of the year, but needed to be finished in the current fiscal year. So when we start discussing the budget display and what that will look like for O&M, you can pretty much assume, and you'll see this, but that the fund balance in the O&M fund is probably going to drop $1 million because you've committed $1 million from this year towards this project that had already been planned. But we ended the year at 9.8. Mainly utilities significantly under budget this year. And then we had some Ameren rebates that we got on the lighting project we did that was kind of associated with the solar panel project. And then when we talk about the budget for next year, you'll see we did get 200,000 from the feds on the solar panel project for LeClaire and South that was put in place before the end of before the end of 2024, December 31st of 2024. But that will be in the budget for next year. So we are getting some of those, I'll say rebates or credits back. So hence the 9.8. Debt service is pretty straightforward. The reason that it went from 300 to 3,300 is that when we did the solar panel debt certificate bond issue, I'll call it, there was some money allocated in there to pay some of the stuff for this year, so that's why the fund balance was a little higher than last year. Debt service pretty much runs where we end up almost at a zero fund balance every year because we levy what we're going to pay in principal and interest. So the only caveat to that would be is if we had a year where we were interest income was higher, we might have a little fund balance left, but that's going to basically show that every year. For transportation, we started the year at 3 million. We ended the year at 2.57. I think the amended budget was around 2.2. Two reasons. When we did our projection for state funding, I prorated it, pretty significant proration. It was a little better, so we got a couple $100,000 more from the state in revenue, and our fuel costs were a little bit under budget this year. But you'll see off to the side, the security bus camera project still needs to be completed payment, and there's 194,000 that's going to come out of that 2.5. So, but we ended the year at 2.57. The other two funds are required, Social Security, IMRF. You'll just see where the fund balances are by statute. Our Social Security is end of the year 194, IMRF is 587. Part of the reason we were able to lower our IMRF tax rate for this year is because we're still carrying that $587,000 fund balance. We tend to try and keep that rate, so if the fund balance gets a little high, we adjust the tax rate so that we're not growing those two funds, since they're pretty much restricted. Well, they are restricted for those two items and are really statutes. So capital projects is just trending where we expected. We ended the year at 60 million, so that's I think our budget, amended budget was around 57, and that's just the timing of payments and drawdowns. So nothing there is alarming. Working cash, we ended the year growing from 5 million to 6.2. Our tort fund, we knew that we were going to drop this year, so the biggest reason for that was really to get our contract with the city for SRO services. We really wanted to get it matched up with the fiscal year that it applied to. We would always like paying a year in advance. So we didn't pay anything in fiscal year 24, which led that fund balance to go up to 1 million. And then this year we paid that. So before fiscal year 24, the fund balance was around 700. So it went up to 1 million and went back down. The main reason was just to get that contract in line with the fiscal year that the actual contract was for. And our health life safety went from 4.1 to 2.2. That was all related to the final payments related to the roof projects and the health life safety bond issue and the roofing projects that were associated with that had not been finished before the start of the fiscal year, but are finished now. So our estimate right now from an operating fund balance perspective, you'll see at the bottom, I've got it right now at 31.2% estimated operating fund balance. We started the year at 33.6. So I don't expect any changes to this. we'll be in the process of starting to pull audit reports and financial statements together, but this is pretty much where I think we'll end fiscal year '25.
One question for you.
Sure.
Red numbers in parentheses.
Yes.
The net change. I
Yes.
assume that's a negative number.
Correct.
So is that we spent
Correct.
more?
Correct. Well, we expended more than we took in, yes.
Okay, so our
So-
ed fund, we spent 1.7, a little over $1.7 million more than we should have.
Right, so when we did our budget adoption, it was about 2.2 million. So it ended up being a little better. We were only 1.7.
Okay, and then down to capital funds,
Right.
we're $27 million over
Right.
what we should have spent?
No, that just means that let me say it, that's not a budget line item. That was expected
Okay,
because we're paying the projects, so the bond issue was issued, we're paying the projects out of the bond issue from the initial 85 million. So we actually budgeted for that number to be like 57 at the end of the year.
Okay.
It was 60.
so we're not shorting
Sure.
ourselves overall?
No.
Okay.
So,
It's just
Well,
that
make-
from the start to the end, that's
Right.
the difference.
right, so let me answer this in a minute. So this is the actual result. If you look at the amended budget we adopted and the budget we adopted last September, we had expected that the ed fund might drop by 2.45. It ended up dropping 1.7. So while it still dropped, it didn't drop as much as the budget adopted
We knew it
budget
was going to drop.
would indicate, yes, right.
Gotcha.
We knew what we were,
Correct.
that amount
Correct.
was going to be
But it was
higher because
possible
we
that
had
it-
a balance and we might
Right,
as well.
possibly could have been
work
down
into
at
it.
12.2 and it ended up at 13, yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
And just come full circle on the last meeting, or last couple of meetings where we talked about the fund balance policy that we recently changed, the 31.29 is above the 25%, which is the guidance. So if anybody's looking for that mega metric that we should all, that's the number. Okay.
Thanks, Dave.
Okay.
Thank you, Dave.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Oh, but wait, there's more.
So,
You want to talk about the budget?
really. So I am, so number one, the reason, which I'm pleased that we're having another meeting next week, because I'm gonna hand out a piece of paper and don't have sticker shock yet, because it's my second pass at this budget right now. But I wanted to at least kind of give you some guideline on where it looks like it might be trending. Obviously, when I give this to you, the one that I'm going through a third and a fourth time is the ed fund. The other ones that you see on here are fairly accurate, I believe, of where I think we're going to be. But I wanted to at least give you an idea of, I think, where things are trending. Maybe we'll pass that. And then I want to talk about a couple of caveats about what you'll see. I'll probably put out on Wednesday or Thursday of what you'll see. As we get into the board meeting, our special meeting next Monday. So I'm going to start at the bottom and then I'm going to go up because that's the ones that are easier to discuss right now. Life safety, I think what you're going to hear a discussion, we have, obviously we started, so I've just carried forward our fund balances that we just talked about. We add 1.2 every year on our life safety levy right now, the 5-cent levy. I've got a placeholder in there right now, 1.5 million for next year, a reduction. I think the biggest projects that are going to be tied to that what you're trying to get a handle on cost are tuck pointing that we have at 3 buildings specifically, and some window caulking issues that we have at 2 or 3 other buildings. So that is a placeholder right now. I don't think it will exceed that, but that's what we're trying to get our wrap our heads around. So you'll see that as a placeholder right now. And if that was this situation or the case, we'd end the year at about $2 million. But there are specific projects tied to that right now, and it's those 3 or 4 buildings of tuck pointing and the window caulking that I mentioned that have to be addressed. They're causing other issues inside the building, and we just need to kind of address those. And those are all life safety, obviously life safety projects are in our 10-year health life safety survey already, so.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
How did you come up with the expenditures number? Because those projects haven't been bid
No,
or anything like that?
based
I mean,
off
is
of the tuck pointing work that was done at Columbus a few years ago.
Okay.
Kind of just spun off of that. I don't think it will be that much, but it was kind of a placeholder, because we'll have to go through and identify. And the one thing I learned from the Columbus project with tuck pointing is you can identify areas, and then it eventually potentially spins into another area as they do the other parts, and then kind of go around the building like, well, maybe we really need to do this too at the same time. So
in this value here, you built in some cushion?
yes. And here's the thing. So there are when you look at the tuck pointing, and when you look at buildings like Nelson and LeClaire, Woodland, just like at Columbus, this is something that is also, while I want to say it is not controllable, but it is kind of controllable too, because obviously there are parts of the building that are a lot worse than others when it comes to that. So if it got to a point where, it was just like, well, it's easy to do these little parts here, but, they're not that bad yet. You don't have to. There are specific areas that when you see these buildings that you have to do. But you can also stop it. When we did Columbus, there were areas that we ended up not doing because of the cost, because they weren't that bad at the time, but they were being brought up as suggestions. Well, we're up here. This is starting to show a little wear. We could do it now, or we could just stop. So those are the conversations we'll have to have. But I mean, our goal, I think, is this is something that we would want to bid probably in the fall and have it like a pretty good idea, so that we're either before Christmas or right after, where we've got that locked in and what that's going to look like. So on our tort fund, there's a slight decrease showing right now. I think the biggest thing when we talk about the tort fund in detail, it's our liability property, which we've been talking about, significantly changed this year. I think I wrote it down here. I think it went up 380,000 maybe over last year. So that is going to be 371. That's going to be an area that we'll have to, when we discuss the tort fund next, or this fall, when we set tax levies and things like that, I don't see that trend stopping right now. From our liability pool perspective, we have a very, very, very healthy health insurance pool, which is, I think you can see based on the increases that we had. Like our increase this year was only 2.2% again. It's been below average for a long time, market average. Our property liability pool took some significant hits in the last few years, Edwardsville being one of them, with the hailstorm that we had last March, I guess, the March before, in '24. I think our claim alone was, I think it was up about $8 million. So you can imagine that we went for and we weren't the only ones, obviously, but you can imagine when we went for a property renewal this year, what that did to property costs. on our policy. So, I envision that trend of going up to 250, 300,000 may be in place for a little bit. We'll see what happens this year with property, in particular. The other thing is because our fund balance, I think for our pool directors feeling was not where it should be. So there is part of that assessment this year that is creating what we are trying to establish as a large loss fund. So there's an extra amount that's in there to try and establish a large loss fund. So if we ever have something like Edwardsville happening again, there is a large loss fund that we could pay our deductibles or our initial payments out of that instead of the actual day-to-day property liability work comp pool. So, so that's something we'll have to look at and talk about when we look at the tort levy this fall, what that looks like. So we'll have a better handle of that in the fall, but we had accounted for that. That's why the tort levy went from, I think it was 3.8 to 4.2 almost, because we figured that there was going to be a significant increase this year. So that's why the fund balance is pretty stable from the year before. Working cash is obviously pretty straightforward. We'll end the year at about 7.5. We'll add another 1.3 this year, so that'll trend at 7.5.
The long-term goal for that is 13 million?
It should be
11 million?
at least 10% of probably your revenue. So right now that'd be 10.4 million.
Talking about working cash.
Working cash. To have that bank so that we can use if things go south in other funds. So, transportation. So we've had a lot of conversation about transportation. So the initial pass, and I will caveat this by a couple things. One, the contractual increase this year is 4.5. So the expenditure number that you see of 8.6 is the balance, is what we spent last year with the buses that we had, adding 4.5% because that's the contractual increase for 26, fiscal year 26. It is increasing a little bit of our fuel costs, not saying that that's going to happen, but I've put about 100,000 in there in case it does happen. And then that number includes that 192,000 of the security camera assigned fund balance, so that we can finish paying for the security cameras that have been installed in all the school buses, the new ones. From a revenue perspective, I have put in a proration amount. So that's why that looks like $1 million drop. So on the funding revenue, and I will give you a detailed revenue report probably Thursday to look at for the upcoming meeting. I prorated it at I reduced this year's funding by an additional 10%. So that may not sound like a lot, but our cost this year went up like about $500,000 or $600,000. So you figured if you were being funded by the state, as you normally would, you add $600,000 in costs, they would reimburse 80% of that. So you should get another $480,000. But with a proration, you're not, right? So actually, I am like being overly conservative, I feel, because not only did I add the 480, I didn't do that. I actually reduced this year's amount by 10%. So when I did that this past year, we ended up with about 200,000 more in transportation funding from the state than what was in the budget. So what I'm not comfortable with right now is the initial. We have to file our initial report by Friday. They have an 81% proration in their computations. I'm not comfortable with those computation numbers. I think they'll be worse than that once they funnel all of the claims through, because the funding allocation from ISB or from the state this year did not change. So you just figure, like, if we went up 500,000 or 600,000, imagine all these other districts that have contracts, how much they went up. You funnel all that through, and if the funding didn't change from the state, you can imagine what a proration is gonna look like. So the problem with that is with the transportation funding, where this gets, you're making your best guess, because not only you have to file a claim on the 15th of August, then they give you a window in October to adjust your claim for like 30 days, 30 days. So you don't really get a final computation when it comes to transportation funding till probably November. So this is based off of then a 10% reduction of what we had this year, not even factoring that our costs went up last year. Hence the 2.5 to 1.4. That's not to say that the transportation fund isn't moving in the wrong direction, right? Based off of where we were at the beginning of last year at 3 million, we ended the year at 2.5. If you take the assigned fund balance, it would be 2.3. And then you're looking at ending at like 1.5. Now again, there are those two caveats on the revenue side, and then on the expenditure side, there's probably 100,000 at least that I've got in there for additional fuel costs if that would happen. Not saying it would, but those are the three kind of like caveats right now. The contract is the contract, and unless we reduce buses, it's 4.5%. So, and based off of that, just as like for information, if anybody didn't know, the bus cost is about 80,000 right now a year. So if you add a bus, take away a bus, it's about 80 grand. Mm-hmm.
So if we incorporate some of the recommendations of the transportation study, would we see a significant change?
I think you have to do a combination of looking at how the tiers run, but then looking at stops and looking at eliminating things that then I feel just has to have a very specific process as to how those things operate operationally if we make a determination, hypothetically. I'm just going to throw some out. Like if you do, which we have, if you've done run analysis and you see that like X run for, mostly it's going to be the high school, right? X run at the high school is only occupied 20% of the time. The stops, right? So if you make a process like you're going to run that route and you're going to eliminate those stops that are not used, we just have to make sure that operationally we have a process then that if those routes or those stops need to be re-added at some point, that you can kind of do that in real time, right? So I think that's part of the issue of working through the process is you can eliminate them, but then if you need a process to also add them back if they become stops, right? So you don't want to take routes necessarily and completely like take them down to where like there's no flexibility, because on the off chance that something has to be added back, now all of a sudden everything has to change, right? So the answer is it could, but it's not necessarily guaranteed, right?
Gotcha.
I'll go up to the O&M funds, so we'll get more detail next week on this, but like I said, this second pass doesn't surprise me that we're projecting to end the year at 8.8 just because of the projects that I know are coming, the projects that are committed from last year, and the projects that we're budgeting this year. Does that mean that will end that way? The caveats on O&M right now are obviously every year is utilities were really good this year. Did I use that number in the budget for this year? No. I used an average of what it's been the last 2 or 3 years. We will be at some point probably filing for energy credits again for those other solar projects that'll be completed during fiscal year 25 or 26, completed before December 31st of 25. And what that number is yet, I don't know as we go through that. It's a process. dealing with the IRS and all that kind of good stuff. So I think that's probably worst case, but I'll have more detail about what that looks like when we talk next week. But that's more than the first or second pass. That's more like a third or fourth. So then the last one is the ed fund. So I think first, second pass, the things that are hanging out there, obviously, with the ed fund is contractual changes, trying to make sure that all of the individual contractual changes related to either insurance or Masters 32 changes or anything like that, that I'm accounting for all of those. So we've done 2 or 3 passes through personal budgeting. The thing that's, it's not hard, but the thing that I always try and instill is like, we are using all of our personnel budgeting processes to try and get to these numbers, because from the actual system perspective, I can't do it until everybody gets paid in August 20th. So when you look at our system now, if I ran a report out of the live system right now, there would be people on there that you're like, why are they still here? Why are they in this list? Because they quit, or they resigned, or they retired. Well, they don't get out of the system till August the 21st, because we pay everybody through August 20th. So it's all being run through personal budgeting right now. But I just, a third, fourth time, want to verify all that. So we knew the number was going to be, there was a number, the number was about 1.5 or 6. Again, there's several caveats to this right now. On the revenue side, and this is a conversation we'll have next week, because I think this is going to be important for this year in particular, because of the revenues and the federal budget and the federal impact. There are, right now, when you look at, I'll give the example of revenue. So right now, in prior years, I would have looked at like the IDA grant and the title grant, and I would have said, okay, here's the allocation for this year, here's the carryover from last year. I'm going to add those two together, I'm going to put them in the budget, right? I haven't done that right now. All I've done is add the allocation they gave us for this year. I've not done anything with carryovers, because I just don't know what that's going to look like. Same thing when we get into specific line items. Even though they said there's going to be release on Title II, there's nothing in there right now because we don't have anything. There's nothing in there for Title III. There is a very small amount in there for Title IV. There is a 20 or 25% reduced amount in Title I. But I didn't include any carryover because I don't know what the feds are going to allow or not allow. Same thing with IDA.
When will you know those numbers?
Don't know, because they said like a few weeks ago, they said Title II was going to be released, and there's nothing that's ever been released.
I didn't know if they had a
No,
deadline that
no,
they released
no.
things.
Is it are they typically released by now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
We got something from ISB saying that they were going to have Title II allocations, but they are not telling us what they are.
Mm-hmm.
I think the fear is, and I've heard that they're going to hold some of it because there's a fear that this will be the last federal money we see at all.
Yeah.
And so they're going to try to stretch it over a couple years as opposed to, but
Just giving
that's
it to you,
that's more
right. Mhm.
conjecture than anything else.
Right. So when you look at that, and then I'll give you an example then. So when we talk about amending the budget, as we go through the upcoming fiscal year, right? One of the first caveats would be as an example. So on IDA is a very specific one, and that's why that expense number may look high, because normally I would take the carryover and I would budget, like for the vast majority, most of our assistants are processed through the IDA grant. There's some amount that's tied to the district, but the vast majority is IDA grant. But because right now I've only put in what is allocated from the IDA grant, I've probably absorbed $300,000 or $400,000 of assistant cost on the district side right now, because I don't know if that's coming or not. So even when we get to the point of adopting the budget for display, even next week, that caveat must still be in place. So as we go through this coming year, I think it's going to be important for me, at least. I feel like it's much more important to do it this way, then have a conversation with the finance committee, so, this group, when those things come forward and are either given to us or changed, that I come back and say, hey, here's what I'd like, here's the adjustment I think we need to do. We didn't account for this carryover, we're gonna add this in, and what that's gonna do is it's gonna take $300,000 out of a district assistant line item and charge it to the IDA grant. Those are the kind of things. There's also smaller ones, like the CTE, like Vote Ag, Perkins, things like that. We've got no allocations for those yet either. And in talking with Caleb Smith, who does the CTE for Madison County, we pay the payroll. So they have not been told. I mean, they've been given something, but they don't know what's going to be released. So we're kind of like in this holding pattern. So those numbers aren't in there. Did you mention about EBF funding?
Not today, I haven't, but they're aware.
So like the EBF funding, we put in like 200,000, it's going to be like 125 because we're in tier 3 now. So all those things are kind of adding up on that revenue side. Then the expense side, I want to do a couple more passes. Again, the biggest issue on the expense side, I think, is going to be the things that would normally be done from a revenue perspective, not being done right now because we don't know what that looks like. And not just assuming that I'm going to be able to charge $300,000 of assistance to the IDA grant, because that may never happen. So it's kind of that.
Don't charge them to the IDEA, where will it
The
come from?
district,
Just
and that's what this is
Definitely.
built off of right now on the first and second pass. The assistant cost that the district is absorbing is in that expenditure number, because it's not in the revenue number.
So this is worst case scenario.
For the second and third pass, it is that.
A soft worst case
But hopefully, next Monday, I will have more fine tuning on that. But yes, these are more of like, when I did the revenue, and I will share the detail before it's done pretty much. You'll see assumptions in the revenue because I'm trying to be conservative. Like, you'll see the state proration, like the other state revenue that we get, like the orphanage revenue is prorated more this year, so that number is lower. The out-of-district tuition, while the number looks higher, when you see the revenue number, it looks higher, but based off of what we spent last year and what we should have gotten, it's a lot lower, if that makes sense. So it's not what it should be. I think the number should be 560 or 570, it's more like 400 or 380 or something like that. Those are built in, like, I lowered interest income right now, but I don't have any revenue on those sources that we've not been told yet, or we don't know are sure if they're coming. So none of those are in there right now. That goes for 2 and 3 and vocational ed and CTE and Perkins and all that. Will we get something? Yes, but I didn't want to put something in there right now not knowing when that's going to happen and what it's going to look like. So from the revenue side, I'd say yes, it's probably worst case. From the revenue side, I'm spending the next couple of days from the expense side to see what that looks like. But because that revenue side is the worst case, you're gonna feel it on the expense side, because things that normally would have been charged to one of those line items right now is sitting in a district account. So. Does that
One
make
last
sense?
question for you.
Sure.
So, under the budgets here, under expenditures, does that
Yes.
include any progression expenses like training, travel, all that type of stuff? Anything where we can get the district an idea?
There is a small, I think I have 125 in there right now, but there is some PD and training stuff in there. Obviously, with Title II being gone, which is where most of our PD was funded, that will be an issue. I think I have 125 in there right now, if I remember off the top of my head.
Are there any grants out there that might surprise us and get it, and especially, I mean, if you get them, you're gonna spend them. them. So as far as on these dollars, it would just be a wash, I would assume. But,
Not really, Jill. The grants that we have, outside the ones we talked about, obviously pre-K is already set. That amount didn't change. That's flat funded. I mean, the funding that we get for that based on the grant we wrote, I think last year, is a flat amount for 3 years. I think there's another year where it'll be 628. So the problem with that is with that amount being flat, with the salaries of the teachers and the assistant salaries going up, it's probably a pretty good bet, which I think would also be in this budget, that the district is going to absorb a little bit more of that cost to operate that because the grant's flat, right? There's not a lot of, in that grant, there's not a lot of what I would call like discretionary fluff spending. It's pretty much teachers and assistants, and that's it. But outside of that, no.
okay.
The state's pulled back on a lot of stuff. They're prorating a lot of stuff. And I don't see that changing.
Cool. You're just
Okay.
full of good news, aren't
No?
you?
Yeah, sure.
2
We
weeks
always
in a
are,
row.
right?
That's right. Any other questions for Dave?
No, but thank you.
Thanks for
So
your time.
Yes.
the process is next week you see a more
Right, we'll do
See-
a
see
more
the-
displayed budget,
more
so it can
formal.
be displayed, right? Then I will almost guarantee you, between that date and the date it gets adopted at the end of September, it will change. And I will document the changes along the way, and those changes will be mainly due to, if there are changes, you know, you find out you're getting some funding source you weren't expecting, something goes south, or, you know,
right.
whatever that might look like. But I'm pretty confident that that will change between the display and the adoption.
Okay. Cool.
Okay?
Thanks, Dave.
All right, thank you. All right.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. 5.3. Dr. Sheldon.
All right, this is where I invite some friends up. Justin and Ryan, come on up to talk about some Hamel things.
Right.
So two items are coming around. There are just a regular floor plan of Hamel, just in case we want to reference some of that. And then we also have a potential of a redesign, renovation, abatement work. And this is just one of a couple different options we'll talk through, but the other one doesn't really require a drawing to talk through. So Justin is one of our architects with BLDD. Ryan Savage is, what's your title, Ryan?
VP of Client Relations.
With Holland Construction, thank you. And so Holland had gone down the path with us of doing some work at Hamel before, so they're very aware of pre-existing conditions and some things like that. Justin, BLDD is new to the Hamel side, and so he's been working with our team just to kind of talk about programming and what that might look like, and then what abatement work is needed. And so we wanted to at least get the conversation started to see what additional information the board might need. So with that being said, Justin, will you walk us through kind of this, the sheet with the colors on it, the revised sheet of what that looks like?
Sure. Is that going to go up on the
It's
board?
not.
Okay, that's fine.
Do you want it? Yeah, here, I can pass mine around.
I guess to back up, Alex had approached us before she went on maternity leave with a basic program for Hamel, and specifically what needed to go in the renovated pods, so 2 classroom pods. That program included 2 kindergarten classrooms, 2 pre-K classrooms, media center, music, 1 conference room. And the task that we were assigned was how can we get that to fit within these octagon pods, meet code egress requirements, and what other code requirements that may kick us into. Specifically, what do we be required to sprinkle the existing building? So for Hamel, the addition that was done that is sprinkled the original building from 1968, I believe, is not. So just renovating those 2 classroom pods and the small connecting corridor between them will kick us into renovating more than 50% of the existing fire area, which is the original building, which then would trigger us to have to sprinkle the original building. So that was part of the kind of study, the analysis, in order for us to give a plan to Holland to really put a budget to what this work would cost. And that's essentially where we're at. So for anybody that has been over at Hamel, the Plan North pod is fairly open right now. It's the load-bearing exterior walls, the load-bearing interior octagon. The south pod, Plan South pod, that is split into the media center and some classrooms. So this reconfiguration of that, the south pod's a little easier with the 2 kindergarten classrooms, or actually it would be pre-K is how we would do it probably, but 2 toilet rooms connected to those. The music room with the music storage room, providing a great buffer for sound from that pre-K classroom. And then the conference room, we'd leave the IT where it's at. And so that corridor that's created, we're within a 50-foot dead-end corridor scenario. So that south pod's a little easier to treat than the northern one, where we've had to create a secondary corridor up around that conference room, splitting where that kindergarten classroom would be. And that's just basically because we just don't have that secondary corridor that's there between the classrooms. So your second way out is really your main entry right now. So without creating that second corridor, you'd be at a dead-end scenario. So that was basically the basic program we were tasked to solve in order to give Holland a plan to produce a preliminary budget.
And so then we took that and put together a cost opinion. I think you've shared it. It was 4.2 million construction costs for the work that Justin just described on all of those.
Now, there's a lot of caveats to that 4.2 million, right? So one of the things we didn't want to do is go so far down the road that we were spending a lot of money to find out something we weren't going to do. So we haven't evaluated electrical service. We haven't evaluated fire pump for a sprinkler system. There's one other thing that we talked about that was a pretty large dollar item that's included in that 4.2 right now. And so there are other options that we could pursue. One of those is building a new classroom wing. Because when you're talking about 4.2 million, you're talking about a decent chunk. And so essentially what we would do is recreate this programming space in a new classroom wing somewhere on the building that we've not designed, but that's a price per square foot that would be.
Yeah, 420 to 450. That does not include demo, so you'd have to demo some things to make room for that, but let's say you use the 450 number to.
So 450 a square foot. That's a possibility. And then I know that there have been conversations about gym and cafeteria being used as the same space. And one of the things, we were out there the other day and we started talking about, is it possible to use part of a pod as a cafeteria space? Because it's a big open area right now. You're not going to fit 125 kids in there, but you're going to fit a large chunk in there that you could actually fit them in as a cafeteria space, which would alleviate, the 2 spaces sharing the same space. So wanted to bring this and kind of the other thoughts to the board for discussion and see what additional information or direction you would like for us to go, at least in terms of investigatory or pursuing other drawings or designs.
I will say one other thing. GHR engineers, who was the engineers on the Nelson project, they were punching that out today. We did go over to Hamel this afternoon. They're doing some exploratory work with the existing electrical, just to take a look at if new mechanical units on those pods would require electrical upgrades. So they're doing that on their own time, their own hours, and on contract, but they're willing to do that just to help Holland out and help the team out here to understand what those ramifications may be.
And it's probably worth adding too, if we talk about adding more square footage, the requirement of the storm shelter that came into play the last time we were talking about Hamel,
Right.
which increases the cost vastly.
Do they currently have a storm shelter?
No.
No.
So this would provide more safety for them?
If a storm shelter was required by the district, yes. What would trigger that, if it's a standalone building, then yes, it would have to be a storm shelter for sure. If it's an addition to the existing building and we don't exceed 50% of the square footage of that original building, we would not be required to have it be an ICC 500 storm shelter. However, if the school district required that to be, then yeah, there'd be a lot more costs associated with that, just with the ventilation requirements of that storm shelter, restroom requirements, getting the correct square footage to house the number of people and staff of that.
So you can
School,
create,
so-
it doesn't need to be like a standalone storm shelter room. You can create classrooms or a gym to be the storm shelter, but it would add $100 to $150 a square foot to those numbers.
Like the Lincoln project, the.
Correct, yeah, that secondary gym is a
Yeah.
storm shelter, correct. So,
So I like the renditions, I think they divide it up, but my main concern is, have we talked to the teachers or the people that actually utilize this space to see if this space would work for their daily needs? I mean, it looks great on paper, you guys did a fantastic job, but are we designing something that is not usable on a daily basis?
we have not gotten to that portion yet, that would happen through design development stage. Right now, this was just the program we were given and trying to figure out how it could fit in there. But yeah, we'd certainly have to sit down with principal, teachers to understand exactly where they'd want the sinks in these classrooms, what casework needs to be in there, the details for sure. And to understand that, yes, in fact, these would work for their daily use.
So this is more conceptual to say,
Correct.
what we could do with this space is this, not necessarily the permanent design.
And it gives us enough.
It was really just
information.
to figure out what
Yeah.
the budget would be to renovate these pods,
Yeah.
essentially.
And then on these pods, it's hard to see because the size, but
Sure.
these look like egress on basically all, on the
The
outside.
little arrows?
Yeah, those look like the door on architectural drawings.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, so they're not funneled back into the school during a active attack event. They actually have access to outside rooms.
I don't think every room does.
Correct.
Yeah, I don't
So-
think every
so
room does.
Some of the
Some part
doors,
does.
some of the rooms have, or currently have exterior doors,
Okay.
some do not. But that would be some of the discussions that would need to happen on exactly what you guys want to do for safety and security of the school.
Okay.
Again, this is just conceptual and not, haven't gotten to the details
No.
yet.
I'm not trying to rake you over the coals here.
No, you're-
I'm trying to
you're good.
digest the drawing here.
We did also carry a number, or Colin carried a number in there for abatement, because there's a decent amount of abatement both in the pods and in the gym space, and then in some of the space up above the ceiling. And I know we've kind of got some preliminary work on that.
Yeah, some of our budget does include flooring replacement. That's a good point too.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff that was abated, that's not shown on that drawing, that
Right.
there's floors that need to be, just the floor has to be replaced in some rooms.
So on the area 2, there's 6 rooms that we built, whatever, 15 years ago, or 20 years, or whatever. What are in those classrooms? I'm surprised you're gonna put kindergarten in, or, they're presently in this other pod.
They're in the south pod right now.
Okay.
Correct. Kindergarten and pre-K are in the south pod.
Okay, so now this plan says they would divide them, kindergarten on one side and pre-K in the north pod. So what are in the 6 classrooms on the area where it says area 2?
First grade, second grade, special education, and I don't remember the 6th classroom, but
Okay,
they're full.
okay.
Reading specialist.
Okay, that's,
And this project would not include, obviously, a gym or a new kind of cafeteria area? It's
Correct.
Just the remodel of these
Correct.
pods only? Okay.
And we're not talking about abating the whole thing.
We would abate what's needed.
What's needed.
Yeah. There would be abatement in the gym space, the flooring, and then there's the corners, there's some mastic stuff up there in the ceiling. And I think there's a little bit in the office area, if I'm remembering correctly.
Correct, there's interior glazing units that
Thank you.
have some abatement, some of the exterior windows as well, some of the glazing needs to be abated.
There's 9,000 square feet of other rooms besides those pods that get abated.
say that again.
9,000 square feet of stuff that we would have to replace.
Plus the pods.
Plus the 12,000 square feet of the pods.
Yeah.
I think it's 12.
And timing-wise, I mean, to me, what I can see is similar to what's going on with Lincoln. You can't renovate someplace that's already got students, and then how are you gonna
So
make all of
Holland
those
has assured
adjustments?
us, right,
Well,
Ryan?
that's easy.
Maybe.
Yes.
Okay.
They've assured us that
That's
they
why
can
we're
do all
here.
this in one summer.
Oh,
So that this would potentially, if we continue going down this path,
Yeah.
the plan would be to continue to bring updates back to the board in September, and then have something to bid in January, that we would release bids, bring those back to the board for approval in February, and we'd be ready to go in the summer. So summer would be abatement first in both pods, and then renovation, and I'm going to say to the point that we can start school with
Yeah.
classrooms and we have occupancy. There could still be some media center work or some other classroom work that would happen outside of school hours, but.
Thanks for clarifying that. I was gonna add that
Yeah.
aspect. That
Yes.
We'll be ready for school
We,
in one
we would be
summer.
at the point we can start school.
Yeah. And it does, we would get started now and have to bring bids to the board
Right.
in January.
So the previous bond project had a different layout.
Yeah,
The
that-
pitch that was to the public during the pitch, during the whole bond issue. How close could you come to those projects that were promised to the public at 18 million? With what we have available. For example, would it be possible to say this is the project that we're going to do, and can you add on the gym and maybe some classrooms in an undisturbed area, and then remodel this during the summer? Is there construction available while kids are there?
Yeah, yes, we could, you're saying, can we add on to an area of the building?
Correct.
While school's still going on? I mean, it wouldn't be next summer, but then like summer, say, summer of '27, then do that remodel while kids are in the new spaces?
Yes.
Yeah, anything's, that's
Okay.
definitely possible. It would just be it would cost more than,
One of my largest concerns is not adding on expansion. I mean, we're making great usable space, don't get me wrong, but we're not adding expansion. And land, they're not making any more of. Edwardsville and Glen Carbon are filling up fast, and just like I did, it pushed me north. And so I'm in the north side, and I love it out in the country. And before you know it, more people are gonna come out there, and Hamill's population is gonna grow, and all we're doing is creating just a few classrooms, a music center, a media center, and we're not creating any room for expansion. And that concerns me, that we're throwing $4.5 million at a school to make it look good, but it's still essentially the same school, just different usable space. I would suggest, in my opinion, would be to see what the teachers think, see what the community thinks.
Look at the growth of the community too.
Yes.
Is Hamel area growing? I assume it is too.
Slowly but surely.
Slowly, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's
And the
Let's see if we can
Hamel
project
community
it.
is different than this Hamel population.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So, I mean, you've got
or
two
it
different
goes somewhere
questions
else,
there.
Yeah, yeah.
Because Warden kids go to Hamel for, kindergarten through second and things like
Because if
that.
it becomes too crowded, that forces us to redistrict. Basically, that whole area up there is already full, right? Is that correct? Kind of?
Or puts us in a budget crisis to do an expansion.
Yeah,
So I'd much
yeah.
rather throw good money at a
Thinking
good
ahead.
project rather than,
So Matt, one of the things that Justin and I kicked around, and I told him I wasn't gonna bring it up until somebody brought up a gym or expansion, then I said I was gonna bring it up. But we kind of looked at the current gym, and is it even possible to use that as a footprint to double the size? So maybe not add a separate gym, but maybe expand that gym to double the size of a gym. So maybe use some of the existing footprint that we have and just maybe be a little smarter with that. That's something we could look into. We really just talked about it standing in the gym. It wasn't anything that we drew out, but we talked about just conceptually what it could look like. I think at the end of the day, you'd have forget the ceiling look, but a Nelson-like gym. You're still going to have some brick walls in there, but you're going to have a little bit more space that would be usable, probably a taller ceiling potentially. That's something that we could look into and explore and get a cost opinion on.
yeah.
yeah, I just like more options
I
other
think
than
the,
option A. and that's-
I just remember some of the roadblocks that we ran into last time we talked about adding, and we're gonna explore all of this, but just like storm shelter, this electrical service, when you start adding those loads. In fact, one of the things that we need to figure out quickly, no matter what we do, is if we just do that renovation, does the HVAC equipment by itself require new electrical service? And if so, we need to order that quickly, like before January probably. So some of this stuff will be coming at us fast if we want to do something next summer.
Right. And those are all valid points, and I think that the board needs to be,
Yeah.
not only the board, but the community needs to be made aware of on why this is not getting done, why it wasn't done when promised, and then what is our plan from here forward? Because here in, 29, I guess, we have another bond coming up.
Not set in stone, but that's
So-
something we've discussed.
If we're gonna go back to the community and ask for more money, we have to have something to show for what we did with the original trust that we were given by the community. So I think that we need to do something a little bit bigger, but if this works for the teachers, this works for the school and the community, I'm all for it.
Would you prefer like that exercise, and we'd be glad to help with it, if we shoot for, if it's not 4 million, it's 8 million, or do we want to say, just do a gym that includes this and tell us what that costs? Because we could probably come in 2 weeks if we had direction, we could.
I think we need to know about the electric and all those things first to see that cost. And the sprinkling, do you have to add sprinklers and the?
We do have that.
We do have to add sprinklers, that's.
Yeah, that's a definite.
Okay.
If we're
But that's not in the
renovating-
4.2,
It
right?
is.
It is.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
So is,
Oh,
the electrical upgrade is also.
Everything is in the
Okay.
4.2 that we
Okay.
potentially would have to do. So that's more of a max cost.
Okay.
At least cost
that makes me
opinion,
feel
Right.
better.
Yeah.
right? Remember, we're not bidding anything. We
Yeah.
have everything designed. This is really a cost opinion of a concept.
And that's what we're here to do. We just want to help provide the tools
Yeah.
for you all to make the right decision.
Sure.
But of bond money, we
Yeah, and how much
allocated
bond money do we have
what
left?
originally?
We allocated 3 originally.
3 originally.
Mhm.
Okay.
So I think similar to Matt, I'd like to see maybe 1 or 2 other renditions that would explore, expanding the building.
Yeah, very much, sort of options, and one of them, like the most cost-effective, if we were to expand, what area makes the most sense to expand? So,
So I would say if we're gonna go down that road with doing those studies, we probably have to get something in front of you to approve contract-wise for us to spend the time and, to develop those, right? And what the board wants, so. Which I can work with you on,
Yeah, we can bring something back in August 25th,
yeah,
and then potentially bring a couple other designs back on September 8th.
possibly.
I'll just, yeah.
I mean, it depends on how in-depth we're trying to get.
Sure.
I'm trying to get budget numbers of, if we're trying to add this classroom wing of this many classrooms, this square footage, we can easily provide a rough budget number, but, starting to do design layouts, it's a little bit different.
Yeah, I think what I heard was we want to see how we can expand the footprints, at least at a reasonable way,
Yeah.
not necessarily blowing it up into a $20 million project, but
Yeah, if you're already at, what, 4.5 million?
4.2.
I would use, 4.2, I'd use that as a target number to stay around to start.
Well, that's,
That's already
you're not
spent.
doing any addition.
Then
Yeah,
you're not
that's
doing
spent on
pods.
this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
So-
if you
So
didn't do
then,
the
that,
pods, you could
but
potentially
that's
do
like
addition.
information that we need to know going forward. I would need to know at least, to say, okay, well, $6 million will get you this.
So Justin, I think so Alma just said, so if we do 4.2 somewhere else, that means we're doing nothing to the pods. Let's assume we're doing 3.5 million somewhere else and we're just abating the pods. What happens after abatement? What's it look like? And I don't know because I've never abated without renovation.
Correct, I mean, yeah, if you're gonna want to reuse those spaces, you're putting those finishes back.
Yeah,
Because all the
just-
finishes come
Oh.
off.
Yeah, it would just be
Correct.
like for like. You'd replace the
Yeah.
ceiling to put the sprinkler in, and the floor if it has asbestos.
So I think for those pods, if I remember right, and Winter's not here to speak to it, but I believe all that ceiling is hot. A lot of the flooring is hot as well.
Correct.
The exterior windows, that has some abatement in it as well, so yeah, you'd be replacing those materials and like.
Rather than abate it and replace it and do all that, what would the cost analysis be to just demo it?
Well, you could do that, you still have to abate it
Yeah.
Before you demo it, you have to abate it.
Yeah.
So there'd still be some cost.
It's a different
not
level of
it's
abatement, though.
different
It's
level,
not abatement
yeah.
for occupancy, it's abatement for demolition. So that is a different level, so it is cheaper to abate for
Correct.
demolition. That's something that we actually went down kind of that road before in '23 when we were looking at, we were not going to use the pods at all. And because it was so intensive to abate them, because there's so much there. At the same time, you have an existing structure that you're tearing down. So it's, I don't want to say it's 6 of one, half dozen another, because it's not, but
You'll get more you'll get a better cost per square foot to renovate that than add the same square footage new.
Okay, that's what I'm.
Even
Yeah.
with the, even
That's
with the,
exactly what I was
Yep.
even with the more, it may cost more money to abate it because it's abated for occupancy.
You're better
Right.
off because of the shells.
But
Correct,
every,
correct.
half the stuff's there already.
That's fair.
Okay.
If we can, if we're asking for numbers and things, I think one of the conditions of adding space at the election during the proposition was because we're expecting a lot more students to be over in that building. Can you get us numbers of students in the past? And I know that could have varied because we didn't have a pre-K program and now we do, you know, so I know there's some variables there that it might look different on paper than what, it's not as easy, but yet it's not like the population is gonna double.
No.
I can't imagine, I mean,
No.
we've been saying for 20 years that that Hamel area is gonna grow and it hasn't.
Part of the first
To-
exercise of the larger building at Hamel was a combination of Hamel Midway. And that was at the beginning of the bond
Right.
issue, and then that came off the table. And so at that point, the building that we were building wasn't necessarily needed in
Right.
size. Between that and the square footage cost that it was, because we were at
Yeah, it was like 590.
$590 a square foot. It just didn't seem like it was good use of dollars. However, we do need to do something, because I think that was going back to your commitment, the commitment was we at least abate and renovate. And that was what we promised in the bond.
And this just very well may be the answer, but yeah, I think we need to take it to the ones who occupy the space,
Yeah.
more than just me who does not.
And I don't want to speak for Alex because she's out on leave, but I believe Alex had a conversation with at least Matt and potentially other people when we talked about programming. Again, I don't know how in-depth those were and what they got into. Just in the concept design, we have 2 pre-K rooms, and right now we have 1. So there's a little bit of expansion there as well, but I think that's something we can explore a little bit further. So do we want more exploration in terms of the architects and engineers that will require an agreement, or do you want us to continue to run with this and just refine?
I think you need to get the opinions of those who occupy the space before, if this works for them, it works for me. If they're like, this is not going to benefit the school at all, it looks cool, but it's not for us, then obviously as a board, we need to answer to that
Okay.
and go the next step further.
And is there a way to do some kind of trend analysis to see what the numbers are? Because if it's growing 2 a year.
Enrollment-wise, oh, absolutely.
Yeah, just get it something that shows what we can project.
Yep.
I think from the perspective of getting, different designs, maybe it doesn't, I don't know if it does make sense if you're saying that it actually would be more cost efficient to do this, like renovate and abate and renovate versus adding on. Am I hearing that correctly?
If it's this
For
exact
sure.
same square footage, yeah. Your economies of scale would get larger if you're adding more square footage.
The question I'm going to push back to the board is the gym.
Okay, yeah.
Is the gym and the cafeteria be in the same space okay with the board? And I think we've already heard from some in our community that they're not okay with that. And I will tell you from a scheduling perspective, the larger the building gets, even if it's by 1 class, that's going to push on that even more than it already is. So we can look at the potential of using part of a pod as a cafeteria space. We can look at the potential of what it would look like to expand a gym at a really high level, and what a cost would be. And I think we could bring, and Justin, I'm speaking for you, but I think we could bring at least a concept and potential cost opinion on that back at again, really high level with probably a lot of contingency built in without going down a full design path. And that might even be separated into 2 projects where part of it is summer 26 and part of it is summer 27.
And I know you know this, Dr. Shelton, but I'm just letting the rest of the board members know that might not have been to these buildings. Midway and Warden both use their gym or their one space as their
Correct.
gym and cafeteria.
Correct.
So if you're gonna do it for these guys,
Yeah,
Just
I
think
think
about that.
the difference of Warden is it's the size of Goshen's
it is
gym.
big,
And
it is big, but it is still the
Midway's is
same
smaller.
space.
Yeah, Midway's is smaller, not quite as small as Hamlin, but it's smaller.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's a very good point. They're not the only school that has a gym and cafetorium.
Did you say cafetorium?
Gym and cafetorium. Not my
That's a
phrase,
very-
I borrowed it from somebody else.
That's a very
but-
clever word.
Yep, we can credit Beth Renth with that, and I'm sure she took it from somebody else. But yes,
Yeah, and I guess we probably want to look to understand for that gym, what kind of size we're looking at comparable to one of your other schools. That'd be good to know for myself as well as Ryan to put a budget to.
Is this the gym
That's
It's area,
currently the,
what's area one?
yeah.
The gym at,
Mhm.
whatever you call it.
Yes, the gym and cafeteria.
Cafeteria.
And I think we'll be able to have an understanding of the existing electrical, if upgrades are needed, if a service upgrade's needed, by the next meeting. And we can probably throw in what that gym would do as well. I know we need to get some additional information from utility-wise, and we'll get that from you guys. But
Yeah, any work out of the first phase of the bond needs to happen by April of 2028. So we have summer of '26 and summer of '27 still that we could spend out of that bond, but we need to have that spent down by that point in time. So that's kind of why we're having this discussion. We are on the cusp of, we could do the pods next summer. I think we've got enough, at least early work done, that Justin has assured us he could have all that done by the time we bid. Anything we do on top of that would need to be a summer '27.
But that could be a separate.
I think it'd be two
decision on
separate,
those.
yes, they could be two separate. I think so, don't you?
I think that's something you probably want to discuss with Ryan and try to figure out what makes the most sense from a bidding budget
I think
contractor
also,
wise.
I think like general conditions, like having a project team on site, we would recommend do it the cheapest.
All
where
one
you're doing
time.
it all at one time, and whether that's
Oh, yeah.
next summer or the following summer. Because some work's gonna have to happen one of the summers.
So that could push everything to summer '27.
Or start later in '26 to where the final big push is summer of '27.
Correct.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, you would still start earlier.
I'd agree with that. I think the question would be is, do you want two separate contractors, warranties?
I think what I just heard from him is no.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No,
No, he
say-
doesn't.
do
I was trying to say no.
one job.
Yes.
Lane wide.
Yeah, it's okay, you just say, don't do
No,
that.
don't do
Yeah.
It's fine.
One job, save money.
Okay.
Okay, I
So,
think
more to come.
Yep, more to come. We'll have something back for the
Yeah.
board, if not in 2 weeks, at the September work session.
Perfect.
Cool.
Perfect.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, so sorry.
All right, next topic is also facility related, if I can just go ahead and jump ahead.
Yep.
So we have been having some conversations about leases in the district and trying to make sure that we have a plan to be out of leases when they come up, if not before. And so we have talked a little bit about South, and South being the potential for office space. So we've started to do a little bit of exploration internally. We've not involved anybody outside of our team looking at the space at South. And this is the early design that we did, probably 6 months ago, and have tweaked a little bit. And as we looked at the north area, which is the right-hand side of South, as you're looking at it, that space is fairly ready to accommodate people moving in. It's got some individual offices. It's got a couple rooms that could serve as smaller, large conference rooms. It's got a couple of things we could put in as workstations. So very little renovation on that side that would be needed. When you go to the far left-hand side, and I'm going to give you the double doors just to the very left, you've got 6 classrooms there. That space is not quite as large as the space occupied at Mark Twain 1 and 3. But because of the way it's situated as a building and classrooms, you just don't get great use of the space because you have these pre-existing quads, right, squares that you have to subdivide, and you can only subdivide them so many ways. And so as our team got together, and especially, and I'm going to talk about Dave's group, if and when they move out of Mark Twain, part of the reason Mark Twain 1 worked really well for them is they had all this existing cabinetry for files and financial records and things like that they would still need to have in some way, shape, or form that would not necessarily be available in this space. And so what we would like to do is engage our architects, BLDD, to start to look at this space a little bit more and how we might be able to be more efficient with the use of this space. It is going to require dollars to put into it, but at the end of the day, I think we'll have a much more usable long-term space than if we look at, let's just try to put 4 people in these classrooms and put some stuff against the walls and call it an office. We have no cost or anything on that, but we do know that as we look, like I said, the right side is pretty good. The center probably will end up coming into conversation because we do have a kitchen there, we have a full gym there, but it's the left-hand side where we have lockers and classrooms that we think we could just be a lot smarter with the space by kind of taking out the interior walls and renovating that space into true office space, departments, things like that.
So the dark lines in here are not dividers, those are actually gonna be constructed walls?
Those would be actual constructed walls as this stands, but again, that gives you sometimes weird-shaped offices or weird-shaped workstations. And
Right.
that's part of the conversation is, one of the things architects will love to do is they'll go, oh, well, here's where your natural light comes in. Here's how you kind of get natural light into that space. And right now we've got, dark spaces, light spaces. We tried to do it cheap and easy. I think what an architect's going to do is do it right.
So in past conversations, I think we came up with a number like around 60,000 to renovate south, and in like a two-month timeline.
No, we had a dollar amount there for internal renovations. Yeah, and it was probably somewhere around 60,000 time material. Yeah, that was our guys doing it over the course of a certain amount of time, yeah.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, so we're talking about moving all of Mark Twain into this?
So September 2026, that lease expires.
Right.
So that's the, working backward from that, all Mark Twain would end up at EHS South.
Of both Mark Twains?
Correct.
And the lease
they'll all-
payments?
They'll all fit?
We believe it would once we really space plan, and I think we actually might end up with more space. Like I said, that left-hand side is about 5,000 square feet, and we occupy about 7,700 at Mark Twain. So,
But that also includes the gym?
no.
Oh, okay, so you guys would leave the gym alone then?
Well, right now we would, but that's a later conversation.
No, but the
Yeah.
dance team, isn't the dance
They
team?
do.
Use it? Yeah,
They
we
do.
gotta take that
Claire's not
space
here,
away
but thank
from
you
them.
for speaking for Claire. 'Cause
Yeah.
That's where she would say it right
Oh,
there.
it's
So you're
Claire
saying
does it
this
too?
amount
Amelia
is
did too.
5,000?
That's 5,000.
Okay, and then this part is
We need to
what?
leave it alone.
Like
I don't have those
close to
numbers.
that?
Yeah, I
Okay.
mean, it's less than that.
Hopefully they can.
Okay.
It's less than
less
that. And I think
than
that's,
that.
the other piece of this
Do
is
what?
this is not at scale. And we learned that as we walked into it. The scale is, those 6 classrooms on the left-hand side are all about the same size. And they're all about 800 square feet, give or take 750, 800 square feet. So when you add circulation to that and an 8-foot hallways, you end up with about 5,000.
And there's no cost associated with this, no hard numbers yet?
No.
Okay.
No, that's where we'd like to engage the architect.
Materials.
Gotcha.
Oh, yeah.
Even though it'll be a small cost, and I think it would be a small renovation project. I don't think it'd be anything, we engage a CM, I think we would put it out for bid, and if we get to that point. That's, I think, part of this conversation is to really do this right, engage the architect. It's gonna take them 4 months to 6 months to really get something done by the time we come to the board for feedback and we're ready. And getting things out in the spring would be when we have to do it to get it done by September
Now,
26th.
has anyone started to move that way yet?
No.
Okay.
What's the status of the legal team or legal agency that was gonna rent, or you
We're
heard
in
of it?
discussions.
Okay, still in there.
Are you looking for opinions or
I'm looking for
discussion?
I'm looking for opinions and a green light to at least engage an architect to look at this space further.
I say go for it, because
Absolutely.
we'll save the monthly rent and pay, the renovations will pay for themselves out of the rent in a short period of time,
Correct. That was our thought too, but
yeah.
Yeah,
I
with
would
property
think.
we already own and investing in our own property, I find
Yeah.
no fault in that. You know, when we're throwing away 16,000 plus a month for nothing, and we can easily get that back out of here, so
Yeah.
I
So,
would support this.
so I guess for me, 2 questions. Number one, this sounds like that you're kind of making a decision about Hadley.
not necessarily. I think that's a different conversation, and I think not everybody would long-term fit in this space. Mark Twain would fit in this space.
Okay.
We still have food service facilities and tech that are staying at Hadley for right now. They're going to move into the SM Wilson side. SM Wilson's going to rearrange and make some space there. So they're going to get out of the wood structure so that at least
Okay.
that's empty. And then we still have Manny Jackson that is out there for discussion. And so we still have people in offices there as well.
And that lease expires in 27?
27. I think the discussion about Hadley is what's, and I think we want to engage structural engineer once we get it empty and really look at the space. But I think what realistically can go in there and maintain the integrity of the building, we know that it's not business.
Yes.
We do know that. But I think outside of that,
I would
it's-
like to see hard numbers on Hadley. I mean, I know that we have the
the lead and asbestos abatement.
Mhm.
If students were gonna occupy in there that we'd have. Now, it's hard to say because I don't want staff to be in the danger zone, but we have kids in the danger zone already. So as long as it's undisturbed, it comes with that cost.
And Matt, I think some of that is what renovation is needed, and I don't have these answers, but if you have to replace windows, you're gonna have to do something with lead and asbestos, because that's part of that. Now, you don't have to do everything, but you're gonna have to do something.
Right.
And I think that's what we need.
Other than that, we've had no structural bids per se to say what it would cost to sister that up to make it level again. There's no renovation bids. I know, we had talked about the $3 to $6 million renovation bid. That is just a general number from conversations.
It's a cost opinion,
Okay.
to use Ryan's words.
So right now, the only hard number that we're looking at is the 450
whatever,
thousand.
yeah.
The
Which
one thing
doesn't
we
have
are
to be
not
done.
discussing though is selling Hadley, so I hope the community hears that. That
Yeah,
is not,
we're
that's
not
not the
discussing that.
discussion,
That's not
that's
being
not the
discussed.
plan. Wherever that comes from, it is not true.
It's just, we're trying to decide its purpose.
Yes, exactly,
I
while
think-
preserving it to
Yeah.
the best of our ability.
So
And using it.
And I was gonna bring a
And
Hadley
honor
discussion
its
at
history.
a
Yes,
later
exactly.
meeting, but, so like I said, the food service and facilities is moving out of the wood side of the structure, so at least we'll get that part emptied.
Okay.
We have a place for the file cabinets, or at least tentatively. The ones that are taking up weight, the ones in the basement are still there. So those will, as soon as school gets started, we'll have people that can move those and get those to a space, and we've got that space prepared. I think at that point, we can bring in a structural engineer, and we can start to get some more numbers on what it is for the structural standpoint. And then I think we need to bring in a contractor who specializes in a home that age and just say,
Yeah,
how do we just maintain the integrity of the home? And I think that's the desire, not necessarily to make it, back to its original grandeur. We want to use it, and we want to make sure that the house stays around.
But if anybody would like to donate funds or grants or whatever, we would
Once
love that.
the construction company gets out, there's so many office spaces on the slab that's out there that's not in a structural danger zone. So with the amount of staff that we can put out there and the minimal amount of staff that we can put inside the Hadley, I see no reason why it can't continue to be used as a center focal point for the district and not sell it or repurpose it or lease it or anything like that.
I think we heard loud and clear from the community, they do not want it sold.
Yeah, I don't think the
I've been
intent was
hearing
ever
that for
to
years.
do anything other than use it for district purpose. I think the
Yeah.
question is, what's the purpose and what's the best purpose?
Yeah.
And we can start to do some exploration in that, but I think we need to get a structural number first and talk about the renovation.
Absolutely.
Okay. So back to South, I need a little bit of, let's go ahead and look further. And I'm seeing head nods. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I was just gonna say, when you say, sign on to architects looking at it, that sounds like I'm writing a blank check.
Yeah.
So I guess, how much does having somebody look at it generally cost?
Dave's not paying
Dave?
attention. We would do it under our existing BLDD contract, so it'd be time and materials. I can't give you a number, because what we would do is we'd give them the blueprint and say, kind of take this and do what they did for Hamel, which is pretty low cost in general. I can't give you a number, though.
Okay.
It's not outrageous.
Okay.
And if you want to put a ceiling on that, feel free, and I'll turn that over to the architect, say, here's how much money you have to do it.
Oh, that'll do 10 minutes.
No, I think we definitely want to see options, and, we want to have it actually, be a place where people can work. So,
And again, we would be going really high level on what we bring back, and the cost would be a cost opinion of, $250 a square foot to renovate, which is kind of the going rate. So something along those lines would be where we'd start.
Would there be some kind of a double secure entry put in?
There's already one there.
Oh, there is?
Mhm.
Yeah.
There is. And we went ahead, and when we did the other projects, we went ahead and keypadded it and everything. So where you see vestibule down there on that angled entry, that's already a double entry.
Gotcha, okay.
It does not have an SSO inside it, which you'll see in just a second, kind of what that looks like. But
Is there enough parking there for staff too?
so if we were to move over there, we would reserve some spots at the sports complex,
Oh, okay,
which is
cool.
probably a little closer than some people walk now from where they park to Mark Twain.
Oh, yeah, Mark Twain.
Because Mark Twain parking is
Along
not friendly.
Park, or walking. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, I think it makes sense to look at it.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Staffing. Okay, moving on to program personnel.
I'm actually going to make Dr. Lane to come up, and he's just going to give a brief
Got it, brief.
report on staffing.
All right, good evening. So we are almost completely staffed at this point, but I did want to talk about a few difficult to find positions and then the contingency plan that we've put into place to address those. So currently, in terms of our certified staff, we only have 4, as of this moment, unfilled positions. One of which was the business teacher at the high school. So Tara Fox has been working with the high school administrative staff on how to cover that. The plan that they came up with is their accounting 1 classes. Those would be covered by our current staff that have volunteered to do overloads, obviously for extra compensation for those 2 accounting 1 classes. And then there's an honors accounting 2 class that is going to be taken care of by Lewis and Clark. But then we would have one of our teachers in the classroom also providing support for that. It just takes a particular certification to teach an honors 2 accounting. So that's the business plan. And feel free to jump in with questions at any time as I kind of run through these. We also were not able to procure a school psychologist.
In the rest of the world, that's a reality out there.
This is a national issue and one we'll continue to probably talk about coming into the years to come, how we can, because we very aggressively recruited, put it out in a national publication for school psychologists and really put a lot of work into it. And we still, we only had people willing to work remote, which is generally not a best practice for our kids.
So just a side note with that, one of the things we're seeing the trend is SLP, social workers, counselors, and psychs working remotely for third parties as opposed to coming and working in person. More flexibility in hours, and so that's been a challenge that we have. Is every answer that we get from people is, well, will you let us work remote? No, we won't. We want you to be with our kids, and you see the
Yes. Yeah, we did have a couple applicants
Yeah.
that were only willing to work
Yeah.
remotely as a school psychologist. So the plan to cover that, I've been working with Andrea, and it's a combination, one of which we do have our school psychologist at the high school that is also going to work with one of the elementary schools to cover part of that load. And then in addition, we're going to offer some additional compensation to our current school psychs that are willing to do some additional testing for us. This is a practice that we've done in the past, and we believe we'll be able to cover it through those 2 means. We had an early childhood special education preschool teacher. We weren't able to find that particular certification, was difficult. That was, in terms of covering that, the plan was that person would be able to do more pull out, like a self-contained classroom. But in order to address this, basically the children will be inclusion into the various classrooms, and we'll be able to provide support through that, which is really the model that most districts utilize either way, but they just wanted some extra services that they could pull out and provide for the students. And then the last position is we wanted to find a bilingual Spanish-speaking English language teacher. We kind of knew that one was going to be a tall task. The good news for that is we actually have an interview on Friday. So I've got some high hopes for, and she is certified and quite qualified, so hopefully that will be taken care of. Otherwise, we did have a backup plan, but we're just concerned
just about our case numbers overall as our EL population continues to grow as a district, and, you know, our Spanish speaking is our highest portion of that population. So it would obviously be a real benefit to have someone with a Spanish certification, and we would be able to reduce some translation costs and things of that nature as well. So I'm optimistic, and I'll let you know as soon as we have an answer on that. Questions?
I had a couple questions.
Sure.
In reference to personnel, and stop me if this is something we need to table until next week. By obviously still learning the ropes, and I get it's 8:30 p.m., everybody'd like to go home. But I would be remiss if I didn't bring this up, but like I said, we can table this. But as far as the conversation that came up last week in concluding our amazing contract for our teachers, a few people spoke to the instructional coaches. And again, if that's still something that needs to be responded to, I think it's, you know, it would behoove us to ensure that we're still following the cadence of going to respond to that. Can you speak to that now as far as whether those individuals that were named, you know, to transfer from teacher back to instructional coaches for the middle school, if that's something that's being considered? If it's a salary issue, if it's a budget issue, if it's just a hard
Certification issue, a class caseload issue, it's a lot of those things. That's something we're still looking into.
Because the certification issue, they were currently instructional coaches, right?
Yes, yeah, and I don't want to get into specifics just
Sure.
because they're individual people, so,
Right, sure,
but I can
sure.
give you some more information kind of on the backstory of the
Okay.
conversation. But at this time we're not doing it, but we're looking into how feasible it is and at what point we could do that.
In the future?
Yes.
Okay. In reference to our substitutes, I don't see it broken down, but I somehow was able to have access to it earlier. So it looks like we have an array, a great list, a roster of substitute teachers that are coming for this school year.
We've got a good sized group, yeah.
And out of them, I think it could have been over a dozen. Are they all PELs, or is it a mixture of certificate-based substitute teachers and PELs, or?
It is a
Okay.
mix.
It is a mix, okay.
It is a mix.
To that, I understand they're paid the same amount. So someone with a 4-year with continuing education units to that of a certificate substitute, is the rate the same?
We do have the adjustment for retired teachers,
Right.
so that's the
Right,
higher
saw
rate. But we don't distinguish between someone, say, with the 60 credit hours and the PEL versus someone with a 4-year bachelor degree, for instance.
Is there a reason to that?
Well, I suppose, I think you could argue it either way in terms of, is there a benefit? Now, it's one thing if they have a teaching certificate or teaching experience, but if they have a 4-year degree and you name it versus 60 credit hours and a degree that isn't teaching, I haven't seen that practice in the district I've been at. I'm not saying it's a bad idea, but it's just usually not broken down that way.
Yeah.
Usually it's about teaching certificate or retired teachers. Makes a lot of sense. They do a great job. We'd love to get them.
And then if they're in the same position for a certain amount of days, they get a larger pay as well.
That's
So
not
if they're-
across the board?
If they're
Across the board.
if they're in any long-term position.
Oh, sure,
yeah,
right.
There's a greater pay per day.
But the difference between the 4-year versus the...
It's the same.
It's the same.
Yep.
So is that something we can take in consideration to increase those that have the 4-year with their continuing education units and versus?
It is, I think and I'm happy to explore this further. I've never seen that in the industry, number one. And number two, I wouldn't say that just because they have a PEL means they're a better sub or a higher quality sub. I think we have some people with sub certificates who are some of our best subs, and I think we have some people with PELs that would probably not be as good as the other ones. And I think it just depends on the person. So I don't know that PEL really dictates.
But we pay more for individuals that come in with their masters, right?
As a teacher,
Mhm.
correct.
Right, so I think it's something that we need to propose to at least take in consideration. You've got individuals that acquire their PEL and took the time and continue their their CEUs, sorry. And with that, I think that's a great practice. I think their quality is above par, and that's not placing it in discredit to
Sure.
someone with a sub-certificate, of course, but it's an earned thing as well, and they come with a little bit higher value, I think. So I know it's been a topic of discussion. I just want to make sure that we're, again, not remiss to ignore.
We can take a look at that.
Sure.
Can I just make sure I understand what the distinctions are here? It sounds
Mhm.
like you have retired that get paid one rate,
A different rate,
Right.
and then you have sub-certificates
Mhm.
that get paid.
which is 60 credit hours.
60 credit hours that get paid a different
That's
rate.
that rate.
And then PEL, is it, yeah, the third rate?
No.
It's same rate as
Same
sub.
with the sub.
Mhm.
And then 4 years of a bachelor's degree.
Same rate as the sub.
Same rate as the sub. So there's really just two.
Correct.
Yes.
Thank you.
And then just, as Patrick said, the long-term sub rates, because they're
Yeah.
planning for classes
Yeah.
and grading and so forth, so.
Well, and the only reason, not the only reason, but the biggest reason is I keep hearing we are in dire need of substitute teachers. And if we can make it lucrative for individuals to say, man, Edwardsville, District 7 is paying this, and I've got this degree or these qualifications, it's something we can, $10, $20 more even, so.
We're always open to ideas to retain and recruit subs.
We can take a sampling of our subs and look at a budget number and see what that would look like.
Okay, awesome, thanks. That's all I had.
And just so I'm clear, Sarah, are you proposing that just the PEL is a different rate?
Just a little bit higher.
Okay.
Mhm, yes,
Mhm.
yep.
Any other questions?
Thanks,
All
Brian.
right, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Dr. Blaine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, 6.2, super fast. Board meeting recordings. We currently live stream our board meeting. There has been discussion. It's come up as a request. Some people board members I have heard ask that we record the meeting, not live stream it, but record it and then post it, a couple days later. Just from a management perspective, and things of that nature. So throwing that out there for discussion, short discussion. Hopefully it shouldn't, be too much for us to discuss, but thoughts?
What's the benefit to recording and putting out there in a few days instead of live? I just really don't know.
Well, Jill, you were asking about this one. Do you want to kind of?
I guess it's been done that way longer ago when ECTV did it,
Yeah.
and then they would just broadcast it the next day. It just, as far as some time, everybody would know, that if you want to watch it, you can watch it online, that once it gets broadcast at 8 o'clock the next day, or, whatever time it would be, if there needed to be some kind of editing because of anything that would be said that wasn't appropriate, whether it would be by outside member or board member or whatever.
Employees'
it would-
names or
It's like
things like that.
when Matt makes fun of me. We can edit that
We're not
out.
editing that. No.
Yeah, I'm just,
That it would
Gene has
give,
to edit that.
yeah, it
Gotcha,
would give
gotcha.
time
Yeah,
for
yeah,
that
yeah.
if that would be necessary.
Yeah, that makes
Just,
sense.
and I don't know if it would be easier, harder, more work or less work for our great team that is here at every meeting and stuff, but I know it's something that's been done longer ago, and I just threw that out as a suggestion.
It's not as uncommon of a practice as you might think to delay the
Yeah.
communication of it. Every meeting has its own audience, depending on what's going on at the meeting. Tonight, right now, there's 14 people watching, or on the
Yeah.
delay that I looked at. We've had a couple hundred watching at times, but by the end of the week, we always have a large number of people who've gone back and watched it. So it seems like
Yeah.
most people are doing it afterwards than during the moment. I think the intent would be that as long as we can still get the information to them and you still have an opportunity to come to the meeting, we would still provide both of those things. But after that, it's really up to the board.
Does it cost us to live stream it right now?
I mean, we still
No.
have to have the equipment over there. I mean,
Yeah.
it's,
The equipment's already
Whether they're
there.
live streaming or recording, it doesn't cost.
I think the brief question I asked before the meeting was, it really doesn't really change their process at
No.
all,
Yeah.
really.
So I'll put my 2 cents in.
Yep.
I attend a church and I play and sing and appreciate that. But other times that I don't, I appreciate when I can just watch it live that Sunday at 9:30 or 9 o'clock or 10:30. Individuals, especially with school starting, I feel that it's an advantage. People just simply can't get childcare for the night. They can't be out till 8:36, but they can watch it. They can listen right now in real time. We don't have anything to hide. We have full value in our IT person, Mr. Jean, who can shut things down when they become inappropriate. We took an oath as a board to be respectful. So we have to use our words carefully when we speak to the live stream and the people that did choose to come tonight. Thank you. But I think it's an advantage to be able to just turn that TV on and watch it, or YouTube, whatever it's broadcasted on, and watch it live. And that's an advantage. I appreciate that folks can watch it later, but I think folks would also appreciate saying, I couldn't attend it in person, but man, I really appreciate I could watch it live.
Yeah.
Just my 2 cents.
I hear it was being live streamed all the way in Germany, I think. So, that's right. So,
I agree with her. And we live in a day and age here where news is almost immediate.
Yeah.
And, when we have members of the press that's here and then comes out with an article the next day, it would be irresponsible for us to wait a few days before we post it in the defense of the district. I think immediate, if it's not going to change anything, they're already here. You might as well hit the button that says live and let it be. And if we have an issue where somebody gets out of line, then the feed is cut or the video is immediately retracted and edited and then pushed back out there.
And I didn't say a few days. I said the next morning at 8 o'clock, just to clarify that I agree.
I just want to make sure we had a full discussion. It come up in various conversations. So we'll just continue live streaming.
Yeah.
Go from there. Okay, cool. Moving on.
Maybe somebody, you two need a signal for Gene to, that's what he made a face like, what?
Yeah, we've already come up with.
Yeah.
I don't think he knows, I mean, I don't think his ability, maybe not the ability, I don't think he thinks he can cut it at that point, so.
Okay,
that would be a decision. But anyway.
awesome. Okay, Dr. Shelton, 7.1.
So when we originally put this on the agenda, it was the first item we added to the August work session. And so I took full liberty in making sure that it was a really comprehensive review because Matt said he doesn't care what time we get out of here. So 40 slides, actually 39, but I'm going to go through them really quickly because it really is quick. And a lot of it is visuals for both you and our community.
So since we're live streaming, I go home and watch this from?
No, you can't. No.
Thanks a lot, man.
Nope.
Your vote doesn't count.
We'll all leave, and Matt will.
So,
Yeah, man.
couple highlights, that's not really what he said, but I have to give him a hard time. So, couple highlights from before school activities. We did welcome the week of August 4th, our 16 new educators. This is a picture of them. One of the things I do every year as we welcome our new educators is I set up a 30-minute time, just a meet and greet, had coffee with one of our new educators moving from Indianapolis back to the Edwardsville area. That'll be at Glen Carbon. And so it's just an opportunity to get to know them and get to know their story and what got them to Edwardsville. And so there's a picture of them. Obviously, as Dr. Lane said, we're still adding a couple to that list, and we'll have a way that they make up their week of new educator orientation. We also welcome two new administrators, Rebecca Kern on the left from Mesquite, Texas, who originally is from Illinois, and Therese Marinelli on the right, our new Goshen principal, who we hired last December. So I told Therese I feel like I've already worked with her a year, and she really just started in July. So appreciate them being here, and they started late in July, and both hit the ground running in a big way. Last Thursday, we had third grade parent welcome. This was a new thing that came from our parent-teacher advisory. We had heard for a couple of years that our third grade parents really feel the jump going from second to third grade, both for their kids and the difference in schools. And so our intermediate principals got together and said, well, let's just do a third grade welcome. And so here's just two quick pictures of Warden and Woodland. Had great turnouts at all 4 of our schools. They did a great job with a quick, like, here's what you can expect as you enter third grade. And I can speak for Woodland. There were 98 people there at Woodland. So it was a great turnout, and I think parents appreciated it. So a couple upcoming dates, just to remind folks of August 13th and 14th, 7th and 8th graders, welcome are at Liberty and Lincoln from 12 to 7. That is coming up Wednesday and Thursday. Mascot Welcome is taking place at 3rd, 6th, and 9th grades. Obviously, at those schools, it's called Cougar Welcome or Wildcat Welcome or Panther Welcome or whatever it is. And all that information is available on the school's websites. Wanted to give a quick enrollment update. I was going to provide it when Dr. Lane was talking, but I decided I'd wait. We still have a number of students registering daily, 20 to 30 a day is the typical cadence. And Katie in our office, Katie Crumble is our kind of our lead in that, and then Amy Rule and Becky Melson both support her. We have not left a weekend yet with less than 10 pending registrations. They have stayed on top of it, and I will tell you, 4 years ago, we had the summer that was horrid because we were all in, and I mean all. Cornelia, Andrea, Tara, Carrie, we were all in the office on Saturday approving registrations because we just couldn't keep up. So thank you to our families for registering early because that helps. Yeah. We currently have 6,825 current enrollments. There's still probably 150 to 250 out there that we know might be returning that have not registered. And we're at 399 kindergarten enrollments. That's our lowest number in, I can't even tell you how long, at least 20 years.
But at this time?
Still a little low.
Still low, okay.
Still a little
okay.
low. I don't anticipate getting
drop.
40 kindergartners between now and the start of school. We might because it's hard to say. SIUE always plays a little bit into that because of our returning students. But normally we're starting to see them start to trickle in. So 399 is where we are today. We are watching several grade levels that are higher than normal. Nelson Kindergarten is way higher than normal, which is funny considering the number, and we've got another school that's way lower than normal. So we're trying to figure out kind of the pace of that, and we'll continue to watch that on a daily basis.
Where do the current enrollment numbers compare to last year?
For the 6825,
Yeah.
a little low.
Okay.
Yeah, still a little low. Now, if you take the returning students, we're in the high 6,900. That's really close to where we ended the year. So.
Good.
Just a reminder that course schedule information is already in PowerSchool for students in 6 through 12. Josie, you got your schedule?
Yep.
Okay, good deal. Bus information is scheduled to come out tomorrow. We've not gotten confirmation from First Student, but I know we do have most of it in PowerSchool that's already uploaded, so that means they're really close to being done. And then student class assignments for students in K-5 will be available on Friday afternoon. If you've not registered, for the folks who are watching or the folks who watch later, if you haven't registered, your child will not be able to get a device, an ID, or participate in Mascot Welcome. So we also need 24 hours of registration before the event. So if you're planning on going to device pickup on Thursday, you need to register tomorrow so that your child can get a device and ID, because otherwise we won't issue that device. And then I just put the times for open houses next Monday and Tuesday for high school, middle school, our various schools. All of that is available on our website. We've sent out a couple of reminders about it, and a reminder about registration went out today as well. So just so that's in the slides and folks can see that. Some construction updates. Man, I'm going to tell you what, this has been a summer of construction like you wouldn't believe. And I'm going to highlight a couple things, and a lot of this is really for community to see as much as the board. But the Woodland pickup and drop off changed dramatically with the reduction of the upper parking lot. And I visited with Dr. Williams this afternoon just to make sure that I was saying exactly everything he wanted me to say. But you can see there in the upper right-hand corner the new pickup and drop off lane, and you'll see a better visual here in a second. There's also a fire lane that goes back behind the playground, so that's for fire department access to Woodland. That will have a gate and lock box on it, or what's it called?
Knock box.
Thank you, knock box. That's going to be on it, and then part of the Woodland parking lot was redone as part of that project as well. So this is that little hairpin area that we saw in the previous slide. And I've got a couple of visuals that just show you kind of how you're going to enter. Obviously, if you stage in the Lincoln parking lot, that will still happen. And you'll head up this hill and you'll make this turn into this double lane. So right now you're in 2-lane traffic coming and going. But once you take that turn to the left at the top, you'll enter double lane. So now cars can double stack in that lane for pickup. And they'll go all the way down to right there. Whoops, back up one, right there. So that's where the stopping point will be. So Woodland families, and Dr. Williams is going to send us out to Woodland as well. They will stage there, and then staff will load in cars from that big sidewalk right there. They'll probably load 6 to 8 cars at a time. Let those 6 to 8 go, bring 6 to 8 more up, and then load them up. Should be a much faster process than it was before when we can double stack. You'll see some guest parking up there as well for those people who need it.
And who would be coming the opposite way in the entry?
So this year, nobody. Outside of construction and
right,
they're staying,
right.
but after
later
we
on.
get done with the project, that will be Lincoln pickup and drop off exit. So anybody who comes late to pick up their child, there's a chance
so
they
it's
would
later.
be coming back
Okay.
that way.
So
But
there shouldn't be too much
no,
traffic stopping them from turning left?
there shouldn't
Okay.
be at all.
Okay.
And then they'll continue out, and the key here is there are 2 exit lanes
Yes.
from Woodland.
That's nice.
So if you follow that arrow that you just saw pop up, you are going to the right turn lane at the bottom of the Woodland, at what we call Dew Place. If you go to the left turn lane, then you're going to go left. And so what we don't want is a lot of crisscross there. So ideally, you're going to know which way you're going. You're going to get in the right lane. You're going to stay in that lane and keep going. Now, will you be able to change lanes? Absolutely, but it might cause a little bit of backup. So I think that'll take a little bit of getting used to, but I think once we get used to that, it's going to be a really efficient process. You do not want to turn here. So the first few days, we probably will even have a barricade there because that is our bus pickup and drop off, and we don't allow parent pickup and drop off in that area. So any questions about Woodland? And that's the graphic that'll be going out to folks as well that Dr. Williams will share. Oops, let me back up. This is the construction area of Woodland. So here on the right-hand side, you can see kind of that pickup drop-off area with those bollards. You can see those new steps coming out of the back of Woodland. So this entire grade was dropped 10 plus feet. May have been higher than that. And then you can see there that on the left-hand side, that's the ADA accessible ramp that goes up to the back door of Woodland. So rather than leaving Woodland and going up the hill, now they're leaving and going down the hill into parent drop-off. For anybody who can't visualize well, this is really challenging. And I actually had somebody before we started walk me out there and say, okay, tell me exactly where we're going to be, because I don't get it. And now I see why it's so challenging. So just want to give those visuals as well. We have substantially completed all secure entry construction. I say substantially because they're still going through punch walk and some punch list items. And just if you recall, when we presented this about a year ago, a little over a year ago, we talked about the secure man trap versus the SSO entry. And most of our buildings were going with the SSO entry, where if a parent comes in that secure area, they're greeted by a friendly face. They're there to talk them through the visitor process. This is where they can drop things off for their child. And then in many of our buildings, you'll see that door entrance into the office. We do have a couple buildings that we weren't able to do that because of the existing conditions. But we do have that in most places. So that's the design that we started with. And then I'm going to just real quickly walk you through the secure entry. So here's the high schools. That door on the left-hand side that you can see goes straight into the office. So nobody needs to enter the common space now. If they're going to the high school, they can either pick up their child in the secure entry, or they can go in the office where they're. And then each of those doors, the door that goes into the commons and the door that goes into the office, both are locked and you have to be allowed in by the SSO through a rocker switch. Once they are in the office, there's also a lockdown process in there where the secretaries can lock the door from the other side so someone can't leave the office. So you've got kind of 2 sets of security there. Any of our buildings that had the door into the office, we have equipped with that. You'll notice, let me back up one more time. You'll notice here at the high school, we did order furniture for the high school entry and Lincoln's entry. We did not order it for the other ones. And that's something that I'll probably be coming back to the board to say, hey, let's start to look at this. But we thought some of the existing furniture would work okay. You'll see a couple of pictures if they have the furniture up that it doesn't look as finished and complete as what this looks. This is Columbus's new entry where they brought the storefront out to the edge of the building. Honestly, it looks like it's always been that way, which is kind of the intent of the building. That storefront goes all the way up to that top of whatever that white is. I'm not an architect, so I forget the word. We did pour a new step out front, so that slab extends out just like it did before. You're still going to step up, but now you're stepping onto the new concrete, and you have that existing double entry. One of the things we found with a couple of our entrances, and we saw it a little bit last year, some of the glare from either the east or the west, if your secure entry faces the east or the west, is blinding. To the point that we're probably going to talk about some tinting of some type to try to diminish that, both from a light perspective and a heat perspective, because that space is getting pretty heated. Each of the secure entries from Columbus on has their own HVAC unit with a mini split and their own thermostat, so they can control their own heat and air. The high school does not, because that wall does not go all the way up to the deck. They do have a temporary heater in just for the outside air coming in, but otherwise they're on the regular HVAC. Go ahead.
On both of those, and I'll say on all of them, can I just go in and walk in that first door? Or is there
There's an A phone, just like
Okay.
there was before. You press the button just like you did before. And the SSO will let you in.
and the high school is the
Same
same
thing.
way?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep,
So if it's
absolutely.
weather, I can see this one that does not, the high school's got some kind of covering roof or whatever.
They do.
But
Yeah.
this one
Yeah.
would not.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think the Columbus one's a great example because the way the SSO was situated before, they couldn't see you outside. So you had to hit the button. A lot of the buildings, the SSO is watching for you, and they're opening, if they recognize you, they're opening the door as you come in if they see me coming, for example. If they don't know you, they're going to have you state your business and come in. But they do try to anticipate that a little bit.
So, but at EHS, 2 feet down is where the high schoolers walk in.
Correct.
So is there like a panic button for the SSO if they at least see, wait a minute, that's a parent, they didn't come in the right door, and then they're going out to the front desk or they're just going.
So those right doors, outside of entry, outside of the beginning of the day, where there are multiple administrators standing outside,
Okay.
students will still come in the left side if they forget their ID, and students go on the right side. Outside of that, the doors are always locked. So you can't get in those 4 right doors
Okay.
unless somebody lets you in, and there's no A phone, there's no way to automate that process.
Okay,
Yeah, and then all of our SSOs have the ability to alert on our crisis code system.
perfect, all right.
So here's the inside of Columbus. They were able to maintain all of the tiling work from the original, which was great. Those are brand new wood custom doors that are matching the storefront was the inside. So if you remember, those were the old wood doors that didn't latch. They were just kind of swing doors. So now they latch. The left-hand door is a door, but not functioning. There's no hardware on it. And that's because the SSO desk will kind of sit in front of it. And then the right door is the egress door. And that still meets all the egress requirements. Here's a couple pictures of the Glen Carbon Secure Entry. One of the unique pieces of the Glen Carbon Secure Entry is it has an additional door that's in, the other ones looks like an office door, but this one goes down to the cafeteria. So it's where Kids Zone would come up and enter during the day, and so it has the same locking rocker switch that they can give access to, but we built it on the other side of that door, so it's within the secure entry. Some of these are hard to see, but just because of the scaling, but you can see that top left-hand corner. On the left-hand side, what looks like a fireplace, but it's really a heater. The SSO will kind of sit in that alcove to the right, and that's where they'll welcome folks. In each of the secure entries, there's also space for some office waiting chairs, and we have those ordered. So there'll be waiting chairs for a parent that's waiting for the nurse to bring a child or waiting for somebody to come pick them up. LeClaire secure entry, you can see right there, super wide open, 3 doors for egress that go into LeClaire, and then the 4 existing doors that are there, all these big wide open spaces. Woodlands actually put a door in the new storefront, in a new storefront on the left-hand side. So you can see on that top picture, the door that's kind of on that third panel, it used to be just windows, and now we have that secure entrance, and when you walk in, that's exactly what you see on the bottom. You can see on the left-hand side that teacher desk that's there. You can see that little black speck on the right-hand wall just past the window. That's a card reader. So all of our doors have card readers, and each building has a different number of card readers depending on the size of the building, access, things like that. So we wanted to make sure there was playground access, teacher parking access, and then just regular front door entrance. So usually there's at least 3 access points in buildings, sometimes more depending on the size. Hamill's Secure Entry was an exterior build, so you can see that there on the bottom. And then on the top, you can see as you enter and look to the left, that's a great example of the SSO desk. SSOs have a lot of hardware, sometimes many monitors, and so there's wires everywhere. So that's a great example of, now that we've got the space built, it's obvious some of that furniture is not going to work like it needs to. And we'll be coming back and talking about that. Questions on secure entries? Obviously, Goshen, Cassens, Warden, Midway, Liberty, and Lincoln all had their existing secure entries that we just upgrade hardware and they're good to go.
Did they, with the upgrade of hardware, did they eliminate the magnetic locks where you have to push the green button to get out? Or
Yes.
Oh, good.
Yeah, they're all crash bar now.
Good.
Yeah, that green button will be gone. Okay. Couple updates on the Commons. You've already seen several of these pictures, but there's the restroom renovation, some pictures of the new Commons. Furniture is going in. I was in there this morning just to see if there were any good pictures of furniture, and none of the good furniture is unpacked yet. So there were some regular cafeteria tables, but I just want you to see that. We also have the new Tiger Bites that is ready to open. I asked Bree for a little information this morning on Tiger Bites that I could put in here, and she said, well, can I come present to the board? And I said, not tonight, and because it's almost 9 o'clock. So, but she did give me this. It's going to be an alternative point of service, grab and go. It is going to be cash only, so part of the slowdown within the food service line is to verify that the meal that they're purchasing meets the National School Lunch Program. In grab and go, there's not that requirement. So you can come grab a salad, you can come grab a sandwich, you can come grab whatever. And the rest of my stuff didn't save there. So that was supposed to say, and I'm not sure why I didn't save, it's going to offer some prepackaged foods, beverages that you can purchase. It's going to offer some charcuterie kind of snack things.
Oh, nice.
And then just regular like chips and granola bars, things like that, all that are compliant with our wellness policy. And then a couple updates on Lincoln Middle. So the green space is what was abated and renovated this summer, about 20,000 square feet. And what that takes is a later start of school and 7 days nonstop from the time we let out. And that's no lie. SM Wilson has been there Saturdays and Sundays every day since we let out of school. And I'm starting to see it on their faces when I talk to them about this project too. So they have done an immense amount of work, and Brad, our project manager, told me to tell you that these pictures do not do it justice. It's way more done than it looks, but there's still a lot of stuff. So when you see it, these are pictures actually from today. Restrooms on the left, you can see the floor covering, but there's actually tile already laid. Most of the tile's actually already done, but the new restrooms, and this is in the 1925 section. So this is the original Lincoln renovated. You can see the hallways there. They've got the grid in and are putting the ceilings in, which is one of the last things they're doing. Lights come in Wednesday morning. Those go in Wednesday, and they're not leaving until they're done, is what I was told. There's an office on the left-hand side that's pretty much done to completion. One of the science classrooms on the right-hand side, which is part of the last area of renovation just across from the auditorium. You can see the casework going in, and again, some of the ceiling grid, flooring in, things like that. Wanted to also give you a couple shots of the things you haven't seen at the new Lincoln. This is in the addition. So that's the new Lincoln light that is at the top of the learning stairs. There's also one that'll be in the entryway of 1925. So that one they're still working on, so he sent me this one instead. And then I'm not going to tell you where this graphic is, but this is one of the graphics up on the wall. You'll get to see it when you walk through on August 31st at 2 o'clock, which is our centennial ribbon cutting ceremony and tours. But this visual that they weren't sure they were going to have in before school start, it looks really great.
Oh,
And the plates and the graphics that they put in the Commons look amazing. So that's got the original along with the addition all in this big panorama view. So it looks really great. Also wanted to give you just a quick view of Lincoln demolition of what it looked like on August the 6th. So that's the cafeteria coming down. They started that on August the 5th, I think it was. And then fast forward, this is today. So the vast majority of the cafeteria is gone. You can stand in 1925 on the main floor and look out and see the tree line, which we commented is the first time since most of us were born that you could stand on that floor and look out and see the tree line. So they're still working. There's a lot of excavation still happening. That two-story structure on the left-hand side is all demoed. It's got to be separated from the main building, and that's going to cause some noise. They're trying to get it done before school starts, but there will still be some noise that happens. And then the 3-story tower that you can see standing, that's the current elevator shaft, the old elevator.
Maybe
It's unhooked and done, and that will end up coming down as well. Questions?
Nice progress.
Yeah.
It's a lot, it's great progress.
A lot of work. Big summer.
It's been exhausting,
Big
but
summer.
good stuff at the end of it. So.
And I heard the gym at the high school, well, I think there was an article in the paper about that.
Gym at the high school's done. It's ready to go with the new floor. We are in the process getting ready to demolish the Liberty floor that was destroyed, and that's an insurance thing. But a sprinkler head got destroyed and flooded the gym, and so we had to have a new gym floor. So that will make our 4th gym floor this year. So we're done with gym floors. We'd like to not finish replacing
I was
more.
just in the high school this morning and it looks so good.
Yeah, we used a stain on the in the 3-point area instead of paint. That's the new thing, and so
All of us who were in there said, we actually pointed that out.
yeah, it looks really cool.
And I'm excited to go back and it feels so fancy in there.
There's and I know Bob walked through the high school last Friday, but Mr. Fox and our paint crew have done an amazing job of putting some color into our high school.
Yes.
So
They were doing
there's-
that today.
Yeah, there's some pops of orange throughout the building, some pops of gray. It looks really good.
It really does.
They've done a nice job.
It all looks really good. It really does. Now, the Liberty floor, when will it be done?
Great question. Let you know.
So tearing it up.
They're still working through the insurance part of that.
Okay.
Insurance has approved it, where there's a little discrepancy in the type of floor it's going back in.
So the
But they
big
have-
floor will be unusable for at least a couple of months.
Yeah, I'd say at least a couple months.
But they have the second gym that
They do.
can be used for PE or possibly some other things.
Yep.
Okay, cool. I guess we're moving on to action considerations. That is the next thing, right? Okay.
Yes.
Approval of action item 6.1, Dr. Shelton.
All right. Thank you. It's recommended the Board of Education approve personnel matters related to resignations and retirements of employees as presented earlier.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Carrie, please call the roll.
Sanderson,
Yes.
Bauer,
Yes.
Burgos,
Yes.
Reinhardt,
Yes.
Carver,
Yes.
Pavey.
Yes. Okay, approval of action item 8.2, Dr. Shelton.
Thank you. It's recommended the Board of Education approve personnel matters related to the appointment, employment, compensation, or transfer of employees pending required certifications and professional educator license, completion of paperwork, and all background fingerprint checks completed and cleared as discussed earlier in executive session.
So moved?
May I have a second?
Seconded?
Okay. Any discussion? Carrie, please call the roll.
Burgos,
Yes.
Carver,
Yes.
Sanderson,
Yes.
Reinhardt,
Yes.
Bauer,
Yes.
Pavey.
Yes. Okay. 9.1, agenda topics. You can see the next meeting we'll have is next Monday, where we'll be approving the tentative budget. And then the 25th, list of topics there, most of which woodland and facilities and policies. So, okay. And moving on. With no further business, may I have a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Second.
Second. All in favor,